us to be able to apply for bail, Your Worship. However, today when we arrived before the court, we were informed, Your Worship, that has been added charges in the charge sheet, Your Worship. In that instance, Your Worship, I hold instructions from client at this stage to abandon bail, and should there be any new factors or new instructions, will they avail ourselves before the court, Your Worship.
The East London High Court in the Eastern Cape has granted University of Fort Hare Director of Investigations and Vetting, Isaac Plaatjes, leave to appeal. Plaatjes filed an application for leave to appeal after his bid for bail based on new facts was dismissed. Plaatjes, as well as his 10 co-accused, are facing charges of killing the university's fleet manager, Petras Roots, and the Vice-Chancellor's bodyguard, Richard Vesele. They are also accused of the attempted murder of Vice-Chancellor, Professor Sakele Buhlungu. Plaatjes is alleged to be the mastermind behind the murders and attempted murder. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says it was critical that the United States remained a leader on environmental issues. He was reacting to U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Trump also signed an executive order last night withdrawing the U.S. from the World Health Organization. Sharon Bryce Pease reports.
He again called on leaders to seize opportunities unleashed by the Paris Agreement to invest in renewables that power 21st century jobs and prosperity. The WHO, for its part, reminded that the US was a founding member in 1948 and that American institutions had contributed to and benefited from WHO membership, and expressed hope that the US would reconsider its position and that it looked forward to constructive dialogue.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng Provincial Regulatory Entity has officially declared that Soweto Taxi Association, Nandue, has the right to operate on routes which have been at the center of disputes with rival group Water in the township. I am on Dilambana for SFM News, headlines at 3:30.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Djokovic Alcaraz quarterfinal showdown underway, and Needling extends contract with the Stormers. More details at 3:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, it has been a busy few hours, not just for me, but certainly for Donald Trump. I must tell you something. Maybe there's two parts to this point, right? That the one part is that the executive orders he signed, is what the U.S. president is allowed to do. But it can be challenged later on. So, they can have that overturned in the Senate, right, on the one hand. So you may say, well, what? On the other hand, one thing that's interesting is the absolute breathtaking speed that he operated on. Now, I'm not a fan of his, I've said so often enough, but I must tell you something. You just wonder if South Africa, on the first day of business of the president, literally gets down to business and gets things moving the same time. I mean, the speed of decision-making was just breathtaking. Well, this show is the National Pulse. Can we keep up with it? My name is Ashraf Garda. Let's talk about that, because lots of things Trump said has implications to the world, to the African continent, to South Africa. So welcome to the show, and I hope you can stay with us for the next 3 hours from 3 to 6 is what we do every single day. Now, to call in, 086 000 2032, save that number permanently on your phone, and then you have the option to WhatsApp, text or voice note, save that number too. 0614 104 107. You can also, engage us on social media. Follow us on Facebook, SAFM Radio. You can also follow us on the X platform, on Twitter. Just tweet us. But do follow SAFM Radio as well as myself, Ashraf Garda, ASHRAFGARDA. Got that? And then the hashtag we use is the National Pulse. So, no surprises. We will talk about that. We'll talk about other things too. Of course, you do know that the business leaders of the world and political leaders are all in Davos trying to strike deals for their countries, and the same applies to South Africa. We'll talk about that later on with Kanti Pai, right? But first things first, let's get to some of the biggest issues. In fact, two things we will stay on regarding Donald Trump. One is that whole slew of decisions that he's signed off yesterday. But amongst the most significant has got to be the one of Cuba. You know, we spoke about it last week. And at that time, one of the last things that Joe Biden did was effectively lift Cuba's status as a terror sponsor country, okay? Well, what do you think Donald Trump has done? One day, gone. Cuba now back on the list as a sponsor of state terrorism. What does all that mean? And what do the Cubans do next? Father Michael Lapsley with us, the Honorary Life President of the Friends of Cuba in Cape Town. Father Lapsley, appreciate your time. You are now connected to the National Pulse.
Hi, Ashraf. Good to be with you. Good to be with all the listeners.
Thank you. But for you, it's not a happy day, isn't it? I mean, you must be furious.
Well, angry, yes. Totally unacceptable, yes. Surprised, no. It's disappointing that President Biden only 6 days ago did Cuba from the countries of state sponsors of terrorism. He could have and should have done that at the beginning of his presidency. But there's a kind of profound irony, Ashraf. Look what he also did today, Trump. Trump also pardoned 1,500 people who were trying to overthrow the democratic order in the United States 4 years ago, and they got a pardon. But also, the United States, in fact, has been the place in which terrorist acts planned against Cuba have taken place for many, many, many years. Where Cuba has been a country that's used its diplomatic abilities to create peace, and places like El Salvador to negotiate settlements. So it's a terrible day. But I think, Ashraf, we need as South Africans to say, no. It's actually a call for the peoples of the world to come out in solidarity with the people of Cuba and say, that's not our view.
Okay, but I mean, so that's not your view. Trump is going to say, so what? And I mean, Trump is going to say that. So what?
Well, yeah, I mean, he will say, so what? I mean, he happens to be now in this incredibly powerful position. But also, I take a long-term perspective. This too shall pass. But I think the important thing is for us as South Africans to come out in solidarity, and I call upon our government to make it very clear that it does not consider Cuba to be a state sponsor of terrorism. And see, the point is, I'm really, Ashraf, pointing out the irony that who is the sponsor of terrorism? If you think of what's happened, the United States has been sponsoring state terrorism by Israel against Gaza for the last 15 months. So they're the ones, ironically, who sponsor terrorism, as well as terrorism against Cuba.
So, I mean, I hear you, but I think the important point out of this is not so much who's right and who's wrong, but it's who has the power, who makes decisions, and who can make those decisions very, very quickly and effectively.
No, Ashraf, no.
Well, I'm saying he's got the power.
I believe in a moral universe.
No, I didn't say. No.
As Martin Luther King said, the arc of the universe points towards justice. So this is a profound, and yes, he's using the power. He's abusing his power against a legitimate government.
Well, I mean, you see, that's my point. I'm saying, notwithstanding my own personal opinion on this one, or even yours, I'm saying at this point in time, South Africa is not declaring Cuba sponsors of state terrorism. The U.S. is doing so, of a new president who's just been elected or re-elected. When you get re-elected, there's a double mandate. He obviously feels that power, and we probably saw that yesterday. So what I'm saying, notwithstanding your point about who's right and who's wrong, and I note your point about the moral world that we talk about, I'm only saying is what practically can Cuba do about it, and Cuba's allies, and you threw in South Africa. And is there any chance that can be overturned?
Well, I think in the end it will be overturned. The question is not when, is not if, but when. This too shall pass. Trump won't be there forever, and one needs to take a long view. But the countries of the world can reach out to Cuba and support it in every way possible as it's increasingly squeezed by the United States. So that's why I'm saying solidarity is the role that we can play and the peoples of the world can play towards Cuba, to say, not in our name. We are in favor of healthy diplomatic relations between the peoples of the world, including with Cuba.
Okay, and again, I would say which countries are going to do that, because I'm looking at the practicality of what happens next. The world, as we know, the WHO, their funding is now effectively stopped, will stop immediately. Yeah.
Look at the votes in the United Nations against the blockade. There's only about 2 countries who support the blockade against Cuba. One is the United States and the other is Israel. The rest of the world has come out very clearly that it does not support the blockade and does not support these positions. But that has to be translated in practical ways into different forms of trade relations and supporting Cuba at this acute moment in its history. And recognizing, you see, in a way, why did they have, the United States normalizes relations with countries it's been to war with, but not with Cuba. Why? Because the United States represents a country committed to wealth for the few. Cuba represents a country with a profound commitment to share wealth among all people.
Well, the example you gave of the USA being among just 2 countries that would support this position in the United Nations is a good example, because, of course, the USA is part of the permanent members of the Security Council, and therein lies the imbalance. But it hasn't stopped other countries, including South Africa, from doing trade with the USA, notwithstanding what you're saying, because it is in South Africa's interest, if I can call it that, to want to trade with the USA. In fact, they've just sent a new ambassador there to make sure that, never mind what their position is regarding Ukraine, Russia, or Israel, Palestine, they need to find a way that they can work together.
Yes, I mean, I think you're right in the sense that we as a country, don't want enemies. We should trade with all nations of the world. So we're not in a position to say, okay, we're going to embargo the United States. That would clearly have a level of absurdity. But we can make ourselves diplomatically felt, and practically we can provide the support we can to the people of Cuba.
Okay. You mentioned the point about, I said whether you're furious, and you said no, maybe angry. What are let's take the current situation now. What are the immediate implications for Cuba with other countries, Cuba as a trading bloc as well? What impact will it have on the people of Cuba?
I think what the United States has done, and ever since it's had the Helms-Burton bill, is try and punish other countries, third countries, for trading with Cuba. And this is where the world needs to come out and say, no, this is unacceptable. For example, in relation to banking and things like that, this kind of listing has very serious implications for Cuba, which is why it was important that it was one small but very significant step towards normalizing relations. And of course, the moral effrontery, the United States of all countries should suggest that Cuba is a state sponsor of terrorism.
Okay,
by the greatest state sponsor of terrorism in the world.
Noted. As many have, many listening will be agreeing with you. Just the last point, to go back to South Africa now. And I'm just trying to understand this from a South African perspective. What can they do? They're very much allies of Cuba. We know that. What practically can South Africa do? They've got a new ambassador there in the USA. There's big issues about what may happen around AGOA. There's been threats about South Africa being affected because of their stance regarding Palestine versus Israel and the ICJ. So what practically can South Africa do?
Yes, I mean, in a sense, unlike Trump that you were congratulating for making all these decisions within 5 minutes, we need to consider that, and the government needs to consider that. And it needs to look at what would be practical and do it. So I'm saying the big word, solidarity, but it's also trade. It's also, I mean, over many, many years, Cuba has done a great deal to equip young South Africans to play their part in our society. And stood beside us in our darkest days. So in its darkest days, we need to stand by Cuba, but actually to figure out, we as a solidarity movement will be asking that question, just as we would call upon the government of South Africa to do the same.
Point taken. Let me just say, as we end up, in terms of being amazed at the breathtaking speed of those decisions, which I said in my intro, it doesn't actually mean, by the way, that I actually agree with any of the decisions he's made, just so that you know that. Father Michael Lapsley, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ashraf. Good to be with you for the first time.
Much
Bye-bye.
appreciated. Thank you. Honorary Life President of the Friends of Cuba in Cape Town. So what do you make of that conversation? Cuba last week, I mean, the same Joe Biden, in fact, has lifted, he actually pardoned 5 of his chummies, 5 of his family members with the surname Biden, by the way. Just yesterday, I think it was the last few minutes of his office. And the reason was that if he doesn't, then Trump is going to nail them. Trump then himself uses that power of being the president to pardon all those people who protested and stormed Capitol Hill. I mean, this is what happens. So now you have this situation about Cuba. Last week, that state terrorism label lifted. A week later, well, they back to sponsors of state terrorism. Let's get your opinions. 086 000 2032. I'm sure you have something you want to get off your chest on this issue and many other issues around the U.S. President, Donald Trump.
My business is very stressful. Construction and plumbing, anything can go wrong. The reason I chose OUTsurance because they align with my vision with regards to customer service. The fact that they won the award for best business insurance makes me feel like I'm in the right hands.
Switch to Business Outsurance today and you could get a massive 20% discount on your business insurance premium. SMS quote to 43328. That's quote to 43328 to switch and save today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Right, let's get your thoughts. Absolutely, let's talk. Temba in Klebecha, go for it. Temba, hi. Temba, do I have you there? Let's see if we can. Yeah, I think we do have you there. Now, Temba, go for it. Hi.
Yes, Ashraf, thank you very much for taking the call.
Pleasure.
Firstly, let's appreciate you and your program for keeping the Donald Trump election and swearing in as a leading story in your time. South African media is dead quiet on the election and swearing in of Donald Trump. It's with the announcement that he has made. One, I am encouraged, absolutely encouraged, by his move to institute changes immediately following his elections. Simply means his voters did not vote him for zero or for nothing. They voted him knowing that he will take action and has taken action. The problem with the South African constitution and the South African democracy is the term rationality or rational. If the president can wake up tomorrow and do anything, he will be taken to court. If he will decide on anything, it will be asked the basis on the Constitution and his authority to do so. So the courts must tell us whether we are right in that direction or not. We have to take leave from what Americans and Donald Trump are doing, and then consider empowering our state president with the same powers that the American state president has, so that we can see the improvement in the direction that we want as the country, particularly the voters. South Africa,
but isn't there a danger to that as well? You know, I mean, look, for example, Donald Trump yesterday made this whole slew of decisions, and the day before Joe Biden did the same thing. And, you know, a lot of that you could ask questions. Some of them like just, president pardons like 100 people, 150 people in just one shot. I mean, do you really want to have your president having that type of almost like monarchy-like power?
No. You see, Ashraf, the issue with Donald Trump, it's not him standing up and speaking out of his own. There's a team of experts behind him. All the pronouncements that he has done, these were planned, and counter-arguments were considered, and decisions were taken to go ahead with those. And if you can see the balance that he has done, reversing the Cuba Declaration was just deliberate in ensuring that he covers the other side. So there's no danger. People deserve their leaders. Even the country deserves their leaders. If there is any danger, the majority that elected that government will live with that responsibility of that danger which will be realized down the line.
Okay.
But as for now, what we are witnessing in South Africa, the majority votes for the government of their choice, and that government will never deliver on their aspirations.
Okay, let's see what happens. Thank you for that, right? I mean, there are clearly lessons to learn for South Africa. First of all, I think we're a lot more consultative, and that's my opinion. But we still have to find a way to break deadlocks and be a lot more quicker and pacier with our decision making. I mean, I just heard this yesterday that there's been a plan to turn UJ into a medical school as well, because there's such a shortage of spaces for medical doctors in terms of academics, right? But that decision's going on for a long, long time. It's been stalling for like weeks or years on end. We can't have that. Not when there's no space for students to want to learn their craft. Right, let's talk more about Donald Trump and the USA right after this.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM.
Okay, so we now know this, that many orders that he signed, and there's so many, including that issue from the World Health Organization, withdrawing of funding from many countries in the world, withdrawing from the Paris climate deal. I can go through so many orders. So what do we make of this? What do we make of the style, the mannerism? What about the morality of it all, if anything, if you can do anything about it? Let's chat to Dr. Gideon Chitanga, who's the researcher at the Center for Africa-China Studies at UJ. Dr. Chitanga, thank you for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very good indeed, Ryan. First of all, what's your one word you would use to describe Donald Trump's, let's call it, performance yesterday?
Well, I don't have a one-word description, but I cannot stop thinking about two things. One is the major global power, the number one global power going isolationist, and the implications for the world. The other is when I think of everything else that I heard yesterday, I wonder if there isn't something malignant about President Trump as a person, or the posture that he has taken to with respect to the role of the U.S. globally and obviously global relations with other powers. Is this going to match a dangerous trend for American politics, and how is it likely to impact the world?
Okay, let's pick up on that word isolationist. Do you really believe that the USA is moving towards being in isolation or an isolationist country?
Yeah, if a country that has been very proactive in leading globalization and free trade walks out of the World Trade Organization, if a country that has been very proactive in terms of championing climate change withdraws from the Paris Agreement, first that actually triggers a rollback. Obviously, the U.S. has been a major funder in activities related to these initiatives for a long time. World trade requires a lot of free trade and a type of globalization that is more responsive to some of the challenges that has been globally articulated, which require global cooperation. So doing that without one of the major powers is problematic. But on a positive note, it also opens room for other major players or major countries to take leadership. And I cannot stop thinking about the role of China in this context, particularly for both climate change and global trade. And my view is that China has always said that it's ready to lead fair globalization and fair free trade. It has also moved further in terms of participating in addressing some of the challenges with respect to climate change, renewable energy, and so on. So this is a great opportunity. I'm also thinking about what will happen to the European Union, although there is a quite substantial instability with respect to a shift towards right-wing parties and social organizations, and in some cases, like in Italy and others, governments, which also seem to be very much warmed up in taking positions that are almost similar to what Mr. Trump is representing.
So for you, I mean, he made many decisions yesterday, executive decisions, right? We can't run through all of them, but let's say, if you could say which 3 decisions most impressed you and which 3 decisions most disappointed you.
So there is basically nothing that I can say really impressed me. I was just struck particularly by the idea of rolling back from the World Trade Organization, the Paris Agreement, and other international conventions. So, and how that will likely affect global relations. But I was also struck by some very basic things that I think are very crucial within the context of American history and society. For example, the declaration that from today onwards, in terms of gender, America would be viewed, will have only 2 genders, male and female. There's been a long struggle for other genders really to be recognized in the U.S. People die because of who they are, their personal sexual identity in other countries. And I am pretty sure that to see these things, if they were not happening in the U.S., they will become worse. I was also just struck by how he mentions the idea of race and links it to a meritocratic approach.
Yeah.
I mean, in societies where which has experienced huge historical struggles for racial recognition. If you think of the history of Black Americans fighting for their basic civil liberties in the U.S., and then today to have a president who will say, okay, our society cannot think about how to uplift others who were left behind for the simple reason of their racial identity. A country that was deeply involved in slavery and the slave trade, which has such a huge population of blacks, but also categories of other people who Indians, Asians, and so on, who are treated as black, to posture that, and people clap your hands for it. It ranges between the ridiculous and utter ignorance at this moment in history, but it's also extremely dangerous. So it's like we are sleepwalking into a shocking historical moment without really thinking about the turn that these events can have in global relations.
Okay.
I was shocked.
Right, we need to leave it at that. Sorry, we need to, unless you just what's it? You were shocked. Give me a quick one.
Yeah, by the behavior of some of Trump's close colleagues, Elon Musk, doing the Nazi slogan. I mean, in the presidential podium.
Okay.
People just
all right. Let's leave it at that. We need to leave it at that. Let's see if others feel that was a Nazi slogan. It's been contested by many other people who say there's an overreaction. But let's see what you think about it. Dr. Gideon Chitanga, a researcher at the Center for Africa-China Studies. Appreciate your time. Let's get the news headlines now. Just gone 3:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, I am on Delambana, and a very good afternoon. Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Rodney de Kock, who has passed away, has been described as a man dedicated to the battle against criminality in South Africa. Defence Counsel in the Senzo Meyiwa trial at the High Court in Pretoria, Charles Mnisi, has been questioning lead investigator Bongani Gininda about warning statements that were submitted without the official police logo. And the Gauteng Provincial Regulatory Entity has officially declared that Soweto Taxi Association, Nandue, has the right to operate on routes which have been at the center of disputes with the rival group Wata in the township. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N12 westbound and Eldorado Park has delays approaching Golden Highway exit. The M1 southbound in central Johannesburg, slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The N3 northbound in Edenvale has a crash before Modderfontein Road, and Malibongwe Drive westbound in Randburg has ramp closure reported. No access to the N1 northbound carriageway due to a truck crash incident. In KZN, the R56 southbound in Richmond is where truck fire incidents reported at Umkomaas Valley. Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place, and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound queuing towards Rhodes Drive. The N1 is where crash is reported on the link to the R300 highway. The N2 outbound has a truck crash reported near the Hairpin Bend on Siloris Pass, and Victoria Road outbound slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Chumi, my mind's on the Trump story, but your mind's on the tennis.
It's on the Australian Open. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz are going toe-to-toe in the quarterfinals of the Australian Open this afternoon. Alcaraz clinching that first set 4-6, and then Djokovic clinched the second and third set 6-4 and 6-3 respectively. This is despite a groin discomfort, and they're currently in the fourth set with Novak leading 4-2. We'll definitely keep you up to date with that one. But Djokovic is bidding to win a 25th Grand Slam and 100th career title this month, while Alcaraz, who's 21, is bidding to become the youngest man to complete the career Grand Slam, as also winning the Australian Open for the first time. And whoever is going to win this one is going to face Alexandra Zverev in the semis. Meanwhile, Aryna Sabalenka kept a historic Australian Open hat-trick hopes on a high by beating 27th seed Anastasia Paluchenkova 6-2, 2-6 and 6-3 in the quarterfinals. The world number one will face Spain's Paula Badosa for a place in the Melbourne final after the Spanish 11th seed stunned Coco Gauff in straight sets. Then moving on to cricket, Rishabh Pant will take over from KL Rahul as Lucknow Super Giants captain in this year's Indian Premier League. Lucknow bought the 27-year-old for $3.21 million in the players' auction in November in a record deal for the world's richest T20 competition. Now, Rahul captained Lucknow in the first three seasons, and Pant says that he will do everything in his power to repay the faith Lucknow has shown in him. Moving on to football, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso says that they welcome the brief pause of the CAF Champions League ahead of what he expects to be a grueling few weeks in the domestic front. They will now resume their Betway Premiership schedule against Magezi FC in Polokwane tomorrow, followed by a Nedbank Cup round of 32 fixture against amateur side Sibanya Golden Stars on Saturday. And Cardoso is quite confident that they will improve as they embark on their league title defense.
So the team will be for sure more strong to face what we have ahead, but it's really time to close this door. Mission accomplished. Very well done for the boys. Bitter sense, yes, it's true on the table, but that bitter sense should always only be energy to move forward, nothing more than that. It's so good when you have a bitter sense because you pass a group stage in the second position. Obviously, everybody knew that in the last 7 years the club went through, so there was a bit of concern regarding the fact that we needed to make a result, and we did it. So let's go now to prepare the next 2 months. That will be very hard for the championship in South Africa.
Elsewhere, Manchester City have announced the signing of teenage defender Vitor Reis from Brazilian club Palmeiras for a reported fee of $36.2 million. The 19-year-old youth international has signed a 4.5-year deal with the Premier League champions. Then Champions League tonight, and Liverpool will be looking to book their place in the round of 16 when they face a host or French side Lille at Anfield tonight. The Merseysiders are first in the league phase with a perfect record of 6 victories from 6, while Lille are 8th with 13 points and currently occupy the final automatic qualification spot for the round of 16. Now, Arne Slot's team are already guaranteed a round of 16 playoff spot, but they need just 1 point more to secure one of 8 automatic qualification spots, though they could lose their 2 remaining games and still advance. And finally, in rugby, Stormers tight head prop Neetling Fouché has turned down significant interest from several overseas clubs to to agree a 3-year contract extension with the club. The 32-year-old has made 88 appearances for the Stormers and an additional 36 for Western Province since joining in 2018 from the Bulls. And in a statement, the Stormers were saying that they're looking forward to having him over, and he also signed on because it will give him a best chance of representing the country with the Springboks. Well, that's it. It's a wrap from my side for now.
Okay, great. We can have lots more. Well, you're going to update us on the tennis. You're going to update us on all of that.
Yeah.
Throughout the show, I'm sure.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
So it's January, huge focus on trying to save money, isn't it? Now you could piggyback on your friends on their streaming service, or you could switch to OutSurance and save on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if OutSurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for $500 in cash, and make that 1,500 rands in cash if you've been claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Now SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With OutSurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, you may remember that towards the end of last year, in fact, I think end of November, I chatted to Advocate Nwako Ramatlori about his appointment as the first Prime Minister of the Bapedi Kingdom. It is a fascinating, groundbreaking move, and we'd wondered then, there's been support, or would there be opposition to that? We now find out, in fact, that the Marota Royal House, which plays an important role in safeguarding customs and traditions of the Bapedi nation, well, they, in fact, are in opposition to this appointment. They've said they've rejected the appointment as the first Prime Minister of the Bapedi Kingdom, allocated to Advocate Nwako Ramatlori. So let's find out more about it. Let's first, in fact, let me just welcome the chairman of the Marota Royal House. That's Kgosi Setla Morago Tobejani. Appreciate your time, Kgosi. Thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to you, Kadra, and good afternoon to our listeners.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So let me start by this. I'm going to go back to the conversation I had with Advocate Nwako Ramatlori. As at that time, the whole conversation was all about the fact that he was appointed the Prime Minister, so I suppose a time for celebration. But questions were asked, and this is what he had to say.
It's a great honor to be bestowed with this very, very high office by the Bapedi nation. I accept the responsibility with utmost respect, and I understand the challenges ahead of me, which are quite mountainous. Nevertheless, I hope I'll not disappoint as I did when I founded that province called Limpopo, 1994.
Let's just go a step back in terms of the appointment, right? It's interesting that you're the very first one. So why did it take this long to effectively constitute this nation formally to the point where you actually now have a Prime Minister?
In a traditional societies such as ours, there's always someone who's senior amongst the king's advisors. So the structure is not new in that sense. What is new is happening in modern day in South Africa, at least in Limpopo, as happened in KZN some years back. So my understanding is that there's always a senior prince in the family who then leads the advisory council to the king, who represent the kingdom in all matters of governance. And that's the role that I understand myself to be destined to execute.
Okay. Okay, so that's his thoughts. Now, clearly, some people are acknowledging and listening, say absolutely spot on. Others clearly disagree. One of them would be Kgosi Setla Morago Tobejane. Right now, you've heard that coming from a person that, in fact, you reject. We're talking about Advocate Nwako Ramatlhodi. So, why do you reject his position as the Prime Minister of the Bapedi Kingdom?
First of all, the word Prime Minister has never existed in our culture and custom. It is for the first time that we are hearing this kind of a concept. And for any new concept that you are introducing within the Bapedi nation, you should have to follow some processes. Processes of that nature is to, call a meeting of the inner circle of the Bapedi. The inner circle of the Bapedi, constituted by 17 houses, who are the right descendant of King Tulare. The houses that have, split across the Sekhukhune. Those houses are the inner circle of the Bapedi, called the Marota, is the one that I'm speaking on their behalf. They were supposed to be consulted and lobbied and give reasons why do we have to have that kind of structure. That has never been done by anyone. To our surprise, the process was just, like we are talking on the air, that there is a new man called Prime Minister of the Bapedi nation. And we said, this will never happen without our consultant. Nobody should take over our own nation without ourselves. We are not, talking about a political election here. We are talking about the birthright of these houses that I'm talking on their behalf.
Okay, so you're saying, first of all, you're not even in agreement with the word Prime Minister or that title, right? Now, in chatting with Advocate Nwako Ramatlhodi, he made the point that all these communities need like an advisor to the king, and in this case, he was referring to himself, right? So, how then did he come about to getting elected or appointed? I mean, what do you know about what actually happened? Did he just walk out of his house one day and say, I'm the new Prime Minister? No, I mean, something must have happened. There had to be some level of support for him.
I wish I know what could have happened, and because we were appalled by by the pronouncement that there is Ramatlhodi who's been appointed. We've never even discussed something of that nature. Maybe the processes were supposed to be in threefold. One, the inner circle, which I've told you that is the Marota houses. Two is the Bapedi, Mahoshi, Abapedi, the traditional leaders of the Bapedi. And the three being the nation itself of the Bapedi. None of the three steps has been, done. It's just, the pronouncement. And unfortunately, respecting Ramatlhodi, knowing him to be a former premier, I would have believed he was going to advise that, no, this process, I don't have any problem for you to talk to me, but could you kindly follow the processes? That was never done, and he himself also seems to be very happy. To us, it's something that we don't even know why he's excited on something that he knows was never been, procedurally followed. because first was supposed to be the creation of the post of that nature, followed by what criteria, what kind of a person should be there. We don't know all those things. We just know of Ramatlhodi. What makes Ramatlhodi the better person knows to nobody in the circle of the Bapedi.
Okay, so help us understand this in a normal situation in terms of your nation's customs, right? What is the hierarchy? I mean, who heads it? How does it work from the top cascading down? Just give us some insight into that.
The hierarchy will be the king or the queen, whatever the situation is. And as we are talking now, of course, it's a fact that the court said Queen Manyaku should be the acting. It's a fact. We can't deny that until it gets sorted accordingly. But equally, it's a fact that the matter is in an appeal court, of the Supreme Court of Appeal, where the matter will be, decided again and finalized at that level, maybe leading to the Constitutional Court. That, I'm talking about the facts. We can't change them. They are there until they change by the law. But the issue of us, we were supposed to have a king, followed by the Council of the Royal Marota themselves, then followed by, representative of Mahoshi of Sekhukhune, and then goes down to an ordinary citizen. In this regard, where we are, all those structures are not there, except the Marota structure, which include the house of Queen Mother, acting Queen Mother, who is currently in dispute with the court.
Okay, Kgosi, have you done what I would think is the obvious thing first up? Is when you heard about this appointment as the Prime Minister from the former Premier Nwaku Ramatlhodi, have you since then approached him? Have you had conversations with him about it?
Oh, I tried on several occasions. I don't know what might be the problem. I even went to the ANC hoping the number that I had of Advocate Ramatlhodi is no longer working. But when I went to the ANC, went to people that they know, all of them give me the same number. But when I ring it, it doesn't go through. And I said, I've tried. There's nothing I can do. Let me proceed with the Marota and take whatever they wanted us to take forward.
Okay, so there's been no formal contact, but he himself hasn't tried to address the people of your nation, your community. He hasn't done that.
Not to the best of my knowledge.
So you haven't seen him make any public announcements or appearances since that conversation we had at the end of November.
We are hearing it in the corridors, over radios, over televisions. We are seeing him. What is he cooking? We don't know. And it gives us a lot of suspicion to say this man running around on our own, own land, own nation without, talking to us. He knows about us. Instead of him making an attempt to say, there's this structure called Marota. Can I just hear what are their concerns?
Okay.
He's nowhere to be, talking to us.
All right, last question very shortly. What do you want to see happen next? What are you going to do next? Very, very short answer.
No, he have to move out of that space. And then if there is any proposal, let the proposal be tabled in a proper manner. We will discuss it. If it makes sense, we will agree. Whether it will become Ramatlhodi or not, it's not an issue that I can even go next to it. It will become, as we would have resolved, in terms of the consultation and the representation made by whoever is selling the concept that we are talking about it. But maybe does not have it, and I want to believe even the Zulus that they are copying from them, they don't have, when they translate that word, it's in Dona Nkulu.
Okay.
Who is he? It's not in Dona, it's not Kgosi, it's just an ordinary citizen of the Bapedi.
That's where we're going to leave it. Kgosi, Settler Morago Tobejane, chairman of the Marota Royal House, they are not happy with Advocate Nwaku Ramatlhodi's position as the appointed first Prime Minister of the Bapedi Kingdom. What do you think?
Just last month, it was December, the season to be merry, or December, for those who know that it's not just a month, but a lifestyle. Now it's January and life is threatening ukubamba amawashini financially. There's back to school and your own goals, and January is on everyone's lips.
Mara, you can get the relief you need right now and start the year strong with the personal loan from Nedbank with access up to 400,000 Rand. Search Nedbank Personal Loans and get a loan that offers you more. Nedbank. See money differently. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Right, so let's get your thoughts on many issues, including the issue of the position of the Bapedi Kingdom or the nation. Then what about Donald Trump? One word, just one word if you'd like to describe his speech yesterday. And then maybe two things coming out of that, because he said lots of things. What for you, of all the different executive orders that he signed off yesterday, what's the one that most impressed you? What's the one that has got you infuriated? Lots for you to consider. Let's get your thoughts.
Hey, Ashraf, let me tell you something about the Bapedi nation. They are very factional. You can find out that this guy that you're talking to and his faction were not consulted. And there is a faction that was consulted and agreed to this. So you have the group that does not like progress. Then you have the group that always agrees. Even with the Mujaji story, the writer consulted the Bapedi nation but did not consult the right faction. So they are very factional. And this one that you're talking to is an enemy to progress. Thanks.
Ashraf, Honorable President Donald Trump, I don't know, you realized yesterday, the time he gives speeches, the man wasn't reading. The man was talking things which he wants them to happen in the US. Because, Ashraf, if you know what you want, there's no need for you to write. You know what you want, what you want to happen in your country. Unlike someone in our country, he's a leader, but someone will write on his behalf and come read for us. Donald Trump reminds me of Honorable Dr. Nelson Mandela. Most of his speeches, the man wasn't reading. Skosana here.
Hello, Ashraf. This is Tepiso. You are so spot on. You know, when I was in South Africa, I worked in the legislative sector and also in public service. And now I'm in the US and I'm in the public service. And sometimes I would sit and wonder, how can we get it right? Because South Africa has a potential. There are many things that South Africa can do, and there are many things that can make South Africa the US of Africa. But then because we have corrupt individuals in government, which is a fact, we're going nowhere slowly. The choice of the Americans is obviously homophobia and racism, and that's what they choose. But unfortunately for South Africa, some South Africans choose poverty. Thank you.
Some South Africans choose poverty. Fascinating one. Really? Do we really do that? Interesting point. Thanks for calling. And if you're there right now, then you're listening on streaming live. Tell me where you're listening from. If you can just send us a drop us a quick message. I'd love to know. Earlier, that comment about factions. But you said this is a faction, and this person is being factional and is an enemy to progress. I wonder why he's being an enemy to progress. And the other point that was brought up about Donald Trump, speaking of, I can tell you now, he was not speaking off the cuff. They have this monitor that you actually can't see. You can't see it from a camera point of view. It's completely clear, transparent. You can't see it. He's reading. There was just too much, without pauses, for him to be just talking off the cuff. I know, I've done that. That's reading. But he did, I must tell you, the tone of his talk, it's something I brought up even last night, was very, very conversationalist, which is very different from being at an election rally. Let's get to further comments. Right, Vuyiswa, you have a thought. Go for it, Vuyiswa.
Okay.
Yeah. Vuyiswa, hi.
Hi, Ashraf, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. Go for it. You're live on the National Pulse.
quite right. Thank you. You know, my predicament is that we seem to be, especially South African and with our media, beloved media, we seem so intimidated. You know, like we feel like, you can hear the tone. This man called Trump is a complicated character. You know, and we cannot go all about it and allow ourselves to be victimized and bullied. That he's going to do this. What he's doing to Cuba, you know, it's bad, like us in the African continent, when we are like perpetual victims of a system that are man-made, and we fear one man, and you know, like he's going to do this and this.
Okay, I hear you, but the problem is our dependence on not just the USA, but other...
No, they depend on us.
But other superpowers, no, but we also depend on them.
Superpower for what? Because God is the only one that is in charge of everything.
I'm giving you the reality of the time. We trade with all these partners.
Ashraf, they can't create war, they can't create animals, they can't create. So why must we fear others who we are the same and we're all gonna die and rot in the ground?
That's another conversation. Thank you for that, Vuyiswa in Parktown. Right, there's more thoughts from you.
Hi, Ashraf. Msizi here from Tannhauser. Just wanted to say, maybe sometimes when we look at the speed at which those orders or executive orders were signed, it's not necessarily a sign of the government working optimally or all hands on deck in the first day. I think it has some sort of or some form of background in order to try and achieve certain goals, because none of those executive orders have settled any healthcare issues that the Americans seem to be worried about. It only seemed to be them reversing whatever Democrats have done. That's what they've been rushing to do.
Hi, Ashraf. Errol here from Durban. Man, look, if Cuba is such a democratic country and looks after its people, why do so many Cubans try to get to America virtually every day? And this has been happening for years. They go to America to get a better life. Errol, Durban.
Okay, thanks for that, Errol. Well, I mean, you know, that better life for all in different places is a complex issue, and it's not always just what you think. I hear what you're saying, right? Maybe as a barometer, if people rush to your country, they want to live here, then it says the country's working. If they rush out, it suggests they're not. And that earlier point about, you know, yes, they're reversing. Well, but even if they're reversing decisions made by the previous leader, they are still making decisions. And I'm not suggesting that they woke up yesterday morning and they made decisions in one day. Not at all. I'm saying, as someone has suggested earlier on, in fact, this has been planned for a good few months. And I'm not even saying I agree with the decisions and the concept of executive power decisions, but a lot of it, the haste, is just quite remarkable. Let's get to the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. Top stories at 4. Deputy Prosecution's boss de Kock passes away and government intervenes in Soweto taxi routes dispute. For SFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Rodney de Kock, who has passed away, has been described as a man dedicated to the battle against criminality in South Africa. De Kock had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer in December last year. He passed on in Morningside Mediclinic in Johannesburg yesterday. SABC senior reporter Hasina Gore has more.
With a career spanning over 3 decades, de Kock was the first black person to be appointed an Attorney General in the country when he joined the prosecuting authority in February 1999. He was appointed Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution in 2020. He also served as Director of Public Prosecutions for the Western Cape from 2003. His memorial and funeral service are expected to be finalized. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Defence Counsel in the Senzo Mewa trial at the High Court in Pretoria, Charles Mdisi has been questioning lead investigator Bongani Kininda about warning statements that were submitted without the official police logo. The statements are usually used by the police to warn a suspect of their rights, which include the right to remain silent before being questioned. Mdisi represents accused number 1, Muzi Sibia, and accused 3, Mtobisi Mncube. 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder of the Bafana Bafana captain. Kininda says the absence of the logo does not mean the statements presented in court are not a police document. However, Mnisi has a different view.
It is saying that the National Commissioner is telling this court that there is no authority that says what specific document must be used when a warning statement is to be taken from a suspect. So that is basically the reason why I'm embarking on this so seemingly tedious exercise. It is not tedious, it is so seemingly tedious, my lord.
Police in Welkom in the Free State have launched a manhunt after a 32-year-old man was shot multiple times at a tavern in Tabong last night. Police spokesperson Lorraine Earl says officers were summoned to a shooting incident where they found the victim with multiple gunshot wounds. Earl says reports revealed that the victim was seen running into the tavern while allegedly being chased by an unknown man with a firearm. He allegedly fired several gunshots at the victim before fleeing the scene in a silver car.
We as a Department of Roads and Transport are calling
the Gauteng Provincial Regulatory has officially declared that Soweto Taxi Association Landue has the right to operate on routes which have been at the center of disputes with rival group Wata in the township. The GPRE regulates public transport in the province. The two taxi groups have engaged in violent and often deadly clashes for years, leaving passengers stranded. Aid is continuing to flow into Gaza as the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel holds into a third day. Hamas has confirmed that it will release the next Israeli hostages on Saturday in exchange for Palestinians held by Israel. U.S. President Donald Trump has expressed doubt that the truce will hold through all 3 phases. The BBC's Yolanda Nell reports.
Our war, it's their war. I'm not confident. But at the same time, we have been hearing from his new special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and he was indicating his ongoing commitment to this deal being implemented, outlining what he said was President Trump's bold vision for the Middle East and seeking to ultimately build new relations between Israel and other Arab countries.
Recapping the top story, Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Rodney de Kock, who has passed away, has been described as a man dedicated to the battle against criminality in South Africa. I am Mundela Mbana for SFM News headlines at 4:30.
Coming up in your sports, the Sawa School of Excellence returned to good old days with nationwide trials and Haas appoint first F1 woman race engineer. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, Cedar Road westbound in Cedar Lakes has a crash reported near Lombardy Road. Allendale Road eastbound in Klerksdorp has delays towards Keenoch Road. The N14 northbound in Pretoria has delays towards the R101 interchange. In Centurion, the M57 is closed near St. George's Hotel, and the N1 northbound has a stationary bus reported near Botha Avenue. In KZN, the N3 westbound queuing towards Spaghetti Junction, the R56 southbound in Richmond has a truck fire incident reported at Umkomaas Valley. Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place, and Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound is slow moving towards Hospital Bend. The M5 southbound is queuing towards Krumbum Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, it's not like we're living in a perfect world and we don't have any blackouts or electricity problems. but we don't have official load shedding. Are you one of those people, when load shedding sort of went on a go slow, that you said, see what will happen on the 30th of May, or if not that, on the 1st of June? If you're one of them, please own up. I was not one of them. I somehow had the confidence that they were starting to sort things out. Well, they've hit 300 now. 300 days since load shedding has been suspended. That's almost close to a year. It's quite incredible. We'll talk about that, Eskom and load shedding, just after 5 o'clock. Looking forward to that conversation. We'll also chat about the World Economic Forum coming up. It's in Davos now. We'll talk about that later on. And Donald Trump, his position regarding, he said, in the USA now there's only two sexes, male, female. We'll talk about that coming up later on. And we'll talk about, just shortly, about the EFF and Kenny Kunene and what Kenny Kunene said about them. But first, let's get your thoughts.
Afternoon, Ashraf, that issue of Cuba with Biden and the Trump there. Biden was just trying to leave a positive legacy of himself. He knows he messed up the Israel and Gaza there. He's trying to leave a positive legacy there. He didn't do it in good faith. If it was in good faith, why on his way out? Most of presidents do that. Even Zuma did that. Free education for all when he knew he was going out. Trump also did that. They all do this. It was not in good faith. Nomin from Brixton.
Ashraf Mafuta. Ashraf, Donald Trump for me speaks as if he's in a wrestling ring. I think American legislators, Ashraf, has a duty to review some of these powers invested in the president through these orders. Trump has been out of office for years, but he comes within hours, he signs orders which have far-reaching consequences for other people in the world. How is that possible, Ashraf? But for other countries, I think that's a wake-up call as to how they deal with Americans and the American government and its leaders, because I think all or most of these orders, Ashraf, doesn't recognize the fact that Americans need global partners, but it's the other way around for Donald Trump.
Well, I hear you. Look, let's get that right. Why? How is it able to happen? Because it's an executive order by the president, and I don't think South Africa, besides maybe the president deciding and appointing a cabinet, has got anywhere near those powers. So maybe that's the good news, that we don't have those powers. But the bad news is sometimes we are too consultative, so we drag it on for 2-3 years at a time, and that's no good. So you look at some very important issues which our president can't make those type of decisions. Having said that, now whether Trump's making the right decisions or not is another whole conversation. And I can tell you now that all those decisions can be reversed by the next president, or when the parliamentarians get into Congress, they may well change that position completely. But they certainly can't do all of it. We know that. Certainly, there's something to just consider around that. Okay, let's get to another issue. In fact, we'll get to that just now, regarding what Kenny Kunene tweeted regarding the miners in Stilfontein and the EFF response.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
You and I have a country to build, difficult conversations to have, solutions to find, and stories to tell. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 p.m. to midnight.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
You know, that first line from Oliver Dixon's promo is so important. You and I have a country to build. Just think about that. Right, let's get to this issue now. So, a lot has been going on regarding the Stilfontein miners, right? Now, Kenny Kunene, who was not just maybe a businessman and other things he's done, is an elected official, he's a politician, part of the Patriotic Alliance and doing some work in transport in the city of Joburg. Well, he tweeted a few days ago, and this is what he said. Well, there's a picture. Let me start with this. A picture of two animals that suspended from the ceiling. The type of animals when you skin them. So think about animals in a butcher or when they are skinned, right, in an abattoir. That's what it is, right? Okay, maybe there's nothing unusual about that. But then his tweet is important. He says, "This is the chilling fate that awaits all illegal miners robbing South Africans of their natural resources and wealth when the Patriotic Alliance takes over government." And then he says salute and then tags his organization on Zbaizani and then hashtag Abahambe. So there we are. To recap, 2 carcasses, 2 animals, could well be goats, right? That's what it looks like in an abattoir, hanging from the ceiling when they are skinned. But he's not referring to them, he's referring to human beings. And there's been a response. The EFF has a position on this. Sinawa Tambo is with me, an EFF MP. Sinawa, appreciate your time. You're now live on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf. Greetings to your listeners.
Thank you. So, firstly, when your party, well, as a human being, you saw that, but as a political party, you also saw that. When you saw that, well, how did you respond? What is your immediate thoughts regarding not just the picture, but the caption is so important?
Look, I think my initial reaction was utter shock, and I don't think it is appropriate to utter the words that I said when I saw it at first on national radio, because I couldn't believe that someone could not only make a statement of this nature, but even the imagery itself was quite disturbing, because it refers basically to the slaughter and skinning and hanging of human beings as if they are livestock. Now, legal status, notwithstanding of those human beings you're talking about, they still remain human beings, and South Africa still remains a constitutional democracy with a rule of law that respects the processes of natural justice. But that someone could have that type of imagination in relation to how justice must be served to those who allege to be criminals in South Africa was extremely disturbing, especially coming from an elected official, as you mentioned, a councillor in the city of Johannesburg, who is tasked with being in charge of transport as an MMC in the executive. So even the utterance that says when they assume government with the Patriotic Alliance doesn't apply. They're already in government. There's possibility that he could be appointed as an MMC of Safety and Security with any form of reshuffle happen. There's a possibility that his president of the Patriotic Alliance, Katie McKenzie, could in the foreseeable future, we don't know if it could happen or not, but these are possibilities, could be appointed as a Minister of Correctional Services. What will they do when they're tasked with presiding over the justice of South Africa? This is how they think. So it was utterly shocking.
Okay, and of course, the key part, the first line is, it's not just saying beware, it's like saying, this is the chilling fate that awaits all illegal miners. So, I mean, it's a clear threat in terms of what's going to happen to them when, as he suggested, that when they get into government, in whichever form, right? Okay, so clearly you're angry, and so I understand is your party, right? You've taken up a position on this. What are you doing?
We've reported him to the South African Human Rights Commission because we think his declaration of the expressed intent to do this constitutes a hate crime, and it constitutes a violation of the Constitution of South Africa, but also a violation of his own oath of office, which enshrines him to uphold the Constitution. So he intends, and that's one of the most instructive things that we must all listen to as South Africans, is that his political party, he declared that it exists with the intent to violate the human rights of human beings, to sort of skin and slaughter people alive and hang them, which is to violate their dignity, possibly subject them to cruelty and inhumane treatment as well. And these are sections of the Constitution which he violates. I mean, Section 10, 11, and 12 of the Constitution, which speak to the right of everyone to life, the right of everyone to dignity, and the right of people to be protected and have security from all forms of violence, from either public or private sources, not to be tortured in any way, not to be treated or punished in a cruel or inhumane or degrading manner. So these are the things that he's violating and intends to violate And as a government official, it's despicable.
Interesting. I mean, you've taken him to the Human Rights Commission, which I understand. You haven't taken him to court on the basis of inciting violence. I mean, you don't see that in the picture.
It's something that I think we should explore. One other mechanism we are seeking to explore is that the IEC seems to have limitations with regards to the registration of political parties and their violations of the Constitution and violation of them participating in elections. So as we know, between local government and national elections, there are by-elections which all of us as political parties contest. And we view his statements as part of cheap and opportunistic electioneering, because he's inciting this violence to appeal to a sensitive topic of immigration in South Africa. So he's trying to appeal to hate for electoral purposes. But there doesn't seem to be specific sanctions within the IEC's guidelines on that outside of an election period. So there's this grey area that exists outside of election periods of political parties being able to subscribe to an electoral code of conduct, but that electoral code of conduct only applies within the specific declared electoral process. So there's that grey area that needs to be explored, so we're looking into that as well in terms of the regulations of the IEC, because the Patriotic Alliance is a registered political party and he is a leader of a political party expressing this hateful and unconstitutional behavior. So we're looking at that as well, and of course we'll explore other legal forms. We're going to explore the public protector as well as an avenue.
Right. Naturally, Kenny Kunene heard about the fact that you've taken him to the Human Rights Commission, and this is what he said.
One.
Patriots, South Africans, you might have been aware that the rascal leader, Julius Mamina Malema, has taken out a statement through his cult that they are threatening to take me to the Human Rights Commission when I air our views and our manifesto point that those who do treason to our country must face death penalty. I am not fazed by the actions of Malema. He has showed in many times, on many occasions, that he is a lover of illegal foreigners. He is a lover of illegal foreigners. He protects illegal foreigners. These illegal foreigners who are mining our gold underground illegally, when they come out of the underground like rats, they go and rape young South Africans, they rob South Africans, they kill and murder South Africans. We saw in the West End when they raped young girls who were trying to make a living. This Mamina Malema was nowhere to be seen. So we are not faced as a Patriotic Alliance. Our stance is very clear that all illegal foreigners must be mass deported, abahambe, and our position is very clear. Illegal foreigners who steal the wealth of this country will be hanged. Death penalties by injection or hanging, but those will be hanged. We choose to hang them unapologetically when we are in power. This wealth belongs to South Africans to pay for free education, to increase the payouts of pensioners, and to build this country and its infrastructure. So we know that Malema is an enemy of South Africans. He hates South Africans. We love South Africans and we put them first. Salute on Baizani. Abambe!
Clearly unapologetic, and in fact used the word treason, death penalty, and we will hang them when we get into power. Not saying when we change the constitution, because you get into power doesn't mean you can do any of those things, because currently you can't hang or kill anybody who's been tried. But anyway, quick response to you, from your side, is the EFF?
Look, again, it's cheap, petty and opportunistic electioneering. Kenny Kunene is failing dismally as an MMC responsible for transport and roads in the city of Johannesburg. The robots are not working. There's potholes everywhere. There's disregard for bylaws with regards to transport in terms of the quality of vehicles on the road. There's nothing verifiable that can be pointed to in terms of his success. And out of desperation, they're rallying back to petty and cheap xenophobia in order to garner support from hate, which proved not to be successful for them in the last election. They barely got to 1% of the electoral vote. But it's going back there because it's got no verifiable work to prove as an MC. So we don't really take that seriously, and we're going to continue in our course of action.
Just very quickly, you've only got like 20 seconds to answer this one. How would you deal with the issue of these miners who may well be illegal, operating in a mine that is illegal? Just what's your quick response to that from an EFF point of view?
The EFF believes that it is the responsibility of the large mining corporations that have been operating in these now abandoned mine shafts to have ensured that they close them properly and ensure that people do not access them in illegal manners and engage in this sort of parallel economy of mining in South Africa. We're in absolute agreement that there must be a formalization of artisanal mining in South Africa, where there's regulation around small-scale mining and working in conjunction with large-scale mining as well. But the responsibility should be on government and on these corporations.
And that's where we can leave it. Thank you for your time, Sinawo Tambo, the EFF MP, responding to the Kenny Kuneni tweet and his comments about the EFF.
I feel great, I feel nice.
Kashem, what's the goal? We're dwelling on the highest, the summer level. What are we? Uzalo. What's the car? No maswazi cars being a mama. Pefeni wants to kreta and get a kaya. It's the core on SABC Plus. Don't miss Uzalo at 8:30 weekdays only on SABC 1. Zanzi for sure.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, so Donald Trump made many executive decisions yesterday. I mean, one of them he very clearly proclaimed there are only two recognized sexes from now on in the USA, male and female. We thought, let's get a response on that, what that means to South Africans who are operating in the, I would say, in the intersex space, right? Peace Makuba is with me, the intersex rights officer at Iranti House. Peace, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting on the National Pulse.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Right, let's get to what Donald Trump said.
And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities. This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Okay, he speaks a lot about different things, meritocracy amongst them, and some may say, well, you know, the Americans a long time ago started this issue of divide and rule according to race, but that's another conversation. Peace, let's get your thoughts on what that means when he says the USA will recognize only two sexes, male and female.
It's really disheartening to be in this space and hearing this kind of statement said by President Donald Trump. It's very alarming and devastating for our community. And it says a lot in the way that leaders understand the demographics of and the difference between sex and gender. And the sex is biological, while gender is a social construct. So there is a little bit of a confusion there. And it's disheartening to just see the U.S. government retreat from all LGBTQI plus advocacy rights, and that has like a very severe consequence on individuals in so many ways, like refugee seekers or queer people who seek health care and seeking autonomy for intersex people. It's quite scary to think that Donald Trump is saying sex is just male and female, while it's a spectrum. Intersex people do exist, and I think it is high time that reality is brought to light in much bigger light, especially at this time.
Of course, he is empowered by the fact that he's been returned to power, and convincingly so, right? And for the second time. So And he clearly had huge applause when he made these comments in the auditorium yesterday. What impact? Let's say we're you sitting in South Africa. I mean, it doesn't have a direct impact on the work that you do, does it?
Oh, it has a huge impact on the work that we do as LGBTQI movements, because there are so many intersectionalities on the different human rights that the policies that the U.S. government is changing. It's affecting the funding that can come through for the LGBT community, and affecting the support that other countries have been pledging. We can also see in the different changes that other African countries are making. Suddenly, Mali is changing now and has a ban on any LGBTQI-related advocacy. And Namibia has since had a change about the recognizing same-sex marriages. So that is a huge impact, and that is very scary to see how quickly that change has come about.
So you're suggesting, I mean, I know there's a phrase often when America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. You're saying the same applies to this as well?
Yes, it definitely applies, because there are so many human rights that are also affecting people within the LGBTQI community. And it's not understanding those intersectionalities that is causing all of this. So it's very important that we continue to advocate for policies that are inclusive and continue to educate and bring awareness.
Okay, so what can you do about it? What will you do about it?
Well, it's essential that we continue to organize as advocacy movements for the LGBTQ and continue to push back against these policies that are discriminating, and somehow just promote empathy and understanding, because essentially it's important to understand that education is very important, and understanding the differences regarding sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, and sex characteristics goes a really long way. And then we're able to just make sure that people are safe, people are seen, people can be just okay to live, because being an LGBTQI member or being different, it's not wrong. It doesn't harm anybody.
Are you in a position to lobby South Africa's government to lobby the USA, or you think this is it's an important issue, but South Africa would have many other issues that they can't even raise because they're never going to listen to them on this issue?
Well, I believe it's very important, because anything that is done by the U.S. government can affect our government in the same way it can affect any other government. And if we want to not drown in the domino effect of these decisions, we do have to find a way of working together and seeing how we can, find a place where we can all meet and hope for change.
Okay, that's where we're going to really appreciate your time. Peace Makuba, Intersex Rights Officer at Iranti House. This in response to the U.S. President Donald Trump proclaiming yesterday that from now on, officially, only two sexes recognized in the USA, male and female, and that is it. Right, lots more to come. We'll talk about Eskom coming up later on. We'll get to the developments in Davos and what that means for the world, definitely for South Africa as well, and also some of the other big issues that you may wish to raise. As always, you know that the lines are open. You can connect 086 000 2032. In some of the tweaks we've made, nowadays we tend to take calls 2:45 or 10 to 4, 10 to 5, 10 to 6, thereabouts, and your WhatsApp notes as well. Looking forward to that, and to get a sense of what you're feeling for the national pulse. Let's get the news headlines. It's 4:30.
Thank you, Ashraf. In the news headlines, government has tabled a new wage offer of 5.5% for public sector workers. The Weather Service has issued a warning of extremely hot weather conditions across the Western Cape. And the Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga, says it is very important for the continent to preserve the Southern African Development Community. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gross.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg is slow moving towards Crown Interchange. The M3 northbound in Edenvale had an earlier crash just before Modderfontein Road being cleared, and on the N1 northbound in Centurion, an earlier stationary bus near Botha Avenue also has been cleared. In KZN, the M7 is queuing at South Coast Road. On the R56 in Richmond, a truck fire incident reported at Umkomaas Valley. The road's been closed, so you're asked to expect delays and diversions. And Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In Cape Town, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Kromboom Road exit. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The M7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is queuing towards the R300 highway, and the N1 outbound queuing towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma Jean.
This is SAFM Sports with Tumi Nkapele.
Right, Tumi, you set the scene for the fabulous tennis match earlier on. How far is it going?
It's done and dusted, and Novak Djokovic beat Carlos Alcaraz to stay on track for an 11th Australian Open title, with Alexander Zverev next up in the semi-finals. The 37-year-old, who is chasing a record 25th Grand Slam crown, claimed a 4-6, 6-4, 6-3 and 6-4 win despite having his left thigh heavily strapped. Moving on to football, and some great news after successfully staging their first trials in 2025 for players born in 2011 and 2012 this past weekend. The SAFA Transnet School of Excellence is preparing to surge nationwide for the first time in 6 years. Financial difficulties in the last few years have prevented the School of Excellence from conducting their traditional nationwide talent search. However, the school's head of technical, Mojalefa Matebula, says that the Transnet has come on board to assist with the much needed funding this year.
We were also fortunate because we were given funding to do trials by Transnet. So from the 15th, we're going to do coastal provinces on Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Free State and Northwest. And then the following week, we are doing coastal, which is Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and then KZN. And then from there, those who are shortlisted from there, they'll also be combined with this current group, and then from there we'll be able to take out the final list.
In a memo sent to SAFA before Christmas, SOE say that they identify young football players from rural and underprivileged communities and prepare them for a professional football career. And Matebula says that that strategy has not changed.
Well, around the country, the process remained the same. We are finalizing our program with SAFA regions and SAFA provinces. We've already spoken to SAFA National and the technical office. So now we are just finalizing with the provincial officers in terms of the venues and all the other logistics. But basically it's the same, no fees. You come on the venue, on the time that's set, you get registered, you get put into a team, you participate, and the selectors will then pick it from there. Of course, we are going to use a mix of the local selectors and our selectors so that you have that kind of variation between us and them. But it's important to have a different perspective as well in terms of selection.
Right. We spoke about it a few months ago, about the absence of a school of excellence and how that robs South African football of the type of upward mobility that rugby clearly has. So now, you think what?
I think this is absolutely great. They've been struggling for 6 years, and we know that it has produced some of the best players in the country, like Bernard Parker, Dan Clates. Just recently, the likes of Relebogile Mofokeng, who plays for Pirates. He's exceptional. He comes from that school. Now, for us to hear news about the school having issues, or there's a strike, the electricity was closed at one stage, it was very sad. But it's good that Transnet has now come on board, even though they say it's not really full funding for everything, because they still need funding for like football fields and transportation and all. But at least they back, and they're still doing what
and they were the original sponsors, right?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yes.
I think when Stephen Pienaar and those guys were involved in that. So who would administer? So partial sponsorship, which allows them to run it. Is it a SAFA project?
It's I would assume they are the ones that are making sure that it is governed properly, and how it's ran. But yeah.
Well, they better get it right, okay? Transnet, they need to take you places. I mean, that's bottom line to all of that, right?
Yeah.
You've got more sport? Yeah.
Yes, in cricket, India and Sri Lanka make it 2-2 with the emphatic wins in the Under-19 World Cup. Sri Lanka overcame West Indies in the opening and countdown day 4 of the ICC Women's Under-19 World Cup 2025 before India followed suit with a win over host Malaysia. Sri Lanka picked up a second straight dominant win at the World Cup, and this helped them overtake India on the points table, but India didn't take long to regain the top spot as they secured a second successive win while also maintaining a net run rate advantage over Sri Lanka. Then in motorsport, Haas has restructured their race operations team with a series of changes that include appointing Laura Mueller as the first female race engineer in Formula One. Mueller will work with new signing Esteban Ocon as one of the 2 new race engineers at the US-based team. Haas's new head of strategy will also be a woman, Karine Kredelich, who has been recruited from Red Bull's Racing Bulls team and will start working from the 1st of March. And in terms of that work of being a race engineer, basically it's a key role as the person who works most closely with the drivers on the performance, setting up and running of their car, and it is their voice that is heard talking to drivers on television broadcasts. So I say kudos to Haas. Absolutely love it for women in motorsport. And just talking about motorsport, by the way, the Toyota Racing SA Dakar Rally team returns tomorrow, and we're definitely looking forward to welcoming them back to South Africa. With that said, it is a wrap.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me give you another that's it. I mean, you know, with a club like Manchester United, they're like Kaiser Chiefs. People love them and people hate them, so they evoke emotions, okay? So here's the story, that the coach, Ruben, in his Portuguese, Ruben Amorim, as opposed to the English Amorim, right? Well, he actually stormed into that dressing room after that Brighton game, right? Never mind what he said to the media. He flipped the tables over, kicked the chairs, and smashed the TV. And now that club that's trying to cut down expenses for so many other things, they've got to get a new TV. Sure. I'm just saying. So he's not just losing it on the field, he's losing it in the dressing room as well. Yeah. Okay, now you know.
SAFM supports a litter-free South Africa. Play your part in keeping our surroundings and environment clean. SAFM, leading the conversation. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 106.2 FM in Thohoyandou.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to the markets with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, you're going to pick up on local and global markets, but before that, you have news about Clicks, right?
Yes, that is their quarterly trading update in afternoon to you and to the listeners. And Clicks' performance was driven by higher sales of private label products, increased promotional sales, which were supported by a record Black Friday. Hence, they gained the market share across all product categories. And the guys had a slower growth in non-promotional sales and soft performance when it comes to Christmas gifting and also home and electrical products. The group turnover Ashraf was up 8.1%, retail sales up 8.7%. Markets were not impressed as the share price is down 3.5% as was talking, and investors awaited greater clarity on policies of Trump's following his inauguration. He took world financial markets on a roller coaster as we tried to second guess his tariff plans, and global markets greeted Trump's presidency with apprehension in moves that were highly sensitive to headlines over the newly sworn in president plans for trade relations and tariffs in particular, and the dollar distance itself from the 2-week low as it fought back its earlier losses. And in the past 24 hours, Ashraf, a key takeaway is that there's less focus on China, and maybe for now Trump's back is worse than his right. And Trump's comments on boosting domestic energy production and imposing tariffs on key trade partners weighed on oil prices, which Brent crude is down 0.3% to $78 a barrel, and the euro metal continued to shine, supported by buying because of that uncertainty surrounding Trump's trade policy. We see gold is up 0.9% 9% at 2,730. Platinum is flat at 949. And markets are cautiously in the green. Trump's tone on tariffs is softer than feared, with the JSE up 0.2%. The rand is flat against the US dollar 18.54, 22.77 against the pound and 19.25 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that, Makwe. We will connect tomorrow and staying with the markets or business. We'll talk Davos in a moment.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so we're going to get to your calls and your comments in just a couple of moments' time. But let's talk about the World Economic Forum in this little lazy town dorpy called Davos, accepting it's beautiful, it's got snow and it's freezing and all that sort of thing, and the whole world comes together, all the business people come together. But let's, in fact, get an explainer of what exactly is Davos and find out more about it with Kanti Pai, who's an economist, of course, and we have him chatting on these shows often enough. Kanti, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's very good to talk to you, and hello to your listeners.
Thank you so much. Right. So let's start with getting an explainer of what is the World Economic Forum's annual gathering. What's it for, and why in Davos only? Why not anywhere else?
It's a very good question. Well, the World Economic Forum, forums, it really is a gathering of different kinds of people, from business to governments to independent thinkers and thought leaders, who come together really to discuss key themes and topics on issues of the global economy. But also, more and more, it has become also a platform. I like to use this word platform because it's also a platform that really allows different governments to actually come and get the soapbox to speak about themselves and the work that they are doing, and almost represent themselves to be able to attract investment, or at least to convince different kinds of stakeholders that they want to speak to about the work that they are doing and the needs and collaboration.
So in this platform that you talk about, is it a meeting of people that is largely informal, or in fact, are there formal decisions that actually get taken?
It is both, because you find that there are formal engagements, so the formal sits, plenaries, discussions that are formal, and they are programmed. So there's a formal program for the World Economic Forum meetings. Then there are informal meetings. Those are the conversations some people call bilaterals, where people actually meet in different places. This is in a town, in a tourist town, so there are hotel meetings. There are certain kinds of venues that have been provided for people to sit down and say, Ashraf, you and I haven't had coffee in a while, but since both of us will be in Davos, should we sit there actually and catch up and talk, or are these opportunities that I've wanted to present you? And so it's that kind of environment where people have, the formal program, and then there are those that people set up on the sidelines where they're actually now saying, since we're here, let us actually engage.
Okay. And so I understand the value of the informal on the sidelines meetups, but in the formal program, and I see the Ukraine leader was addressing the audience just now as well, in that formal program, are there, when we talk about decisions and deal making, does deal making take place in the formal program or not?
No, not so much in the formal program. The formal programs are great because they surface key themes. They probably actually also allow for sharing of ideas and big ideas. And you understand that there are also themes there. So, for example, the main theme this year is about collaboration in sort of the intelligence age. That really speaks to, obviously, the kind of dynamic that we have in the world where, everything is now about computers, it's about artificial thinking, it's about, that further thinking and the computer thinking that the world has done. And how do people collaborate in that? And then there are also sub-themes around that. And so on the formal platform, it's really about to give leaders, both in business and in the private sector, and thought leaders to come up and say, look, these are the contributions we are making in terms of these themes, these topics, these big global affecting issues. And so that is an important part, because then we are actually also prospering a view about how the world should move forward. And that's where you find these big prominent leaders, because they're trying to state a case and convince each other about where the world should be going and in what way they should be.
Okay, I certainly had a few callers this morning on SFM radio, and people saying something like, "Hey, Madas Ramaphosa, he must just stay at home. We have got enough. We have enough problems at home. Why does he want to go to Davos and waste our money?" What's Kanti Pai's response to that?
Look, it's very important. Look, the thing is, South Africa hasn't gone, and I think I'm one of those people that have been happy that we haven't gone in the past few years, or at least some of us hasn't gone in the past few years, because the case, as I said, we did not have anything really worthwhile to put out in terms of actually that platform. Remember, I think that we lost a lot of credibility over a period of time where we were promising as South Africa that we are going to make certain reforms, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, so that investors could, to buy in other businesses, could listen to us, actually that we could partner appropriately globally with other governments in terms of the work that has to be done to forward, I guess, the economic and human agenda. But this is now telling us that, the government probably feels very much more confident to come up and say, look at the work that we've done, and we can now be in a place to credibly speak about it. For example, Operation Vulindlela has been one such space where we see there is some progress that has been made, some of it really on paper, but some of it also actually real progress that people can be happy about. I mean, I think one of the things we know about, for example, is the energy problem. The energy crisis has been with us for so long, for many, many, many years, and we kept promising, it will be done by October, we'll have no problem. No, by next day we'll have no problem. In 2 years' time we'll have no problem. And so we lost credibility there, but it looks like now we've had a handle, and perhaps that's the right time to then say, take a platform and say, look, we've made progress in this problem, but perhaps we also need to get more assistance, because remember, the issue of energy stability is going to be one that's going to be long-term, because as the economy grows, we're going to need more energy. Now, do we have that capacity in terms of going this way? So the problem today may not be there, but it doesn't mean that it's not a problem of tomorrow if we grow. And for me, that's a big concern.
Yeah, I can just imagine the president saying, I'm not going to go there because they're all going to ask me one question. You guys have load shedding, isn't it? So now he can say, actually, no, we don't have load shedding. So I get that. But I mean, it gets me so here's the thoughts. In terms of your understanding, what then would South Africa's pitch? I mean, what's the South African story this time round?
There's probably a two-pronged part of that story. The one, of course, is that, we are looking for partnership and investment to continue the work that we've been doing. But there's also the G20 story, Asif. I think that's an important one at this time, and I'm hoping that that's a story that will be brought together with our story in terms of our own personal interests. But we are also leading the G20 at this time. And in what ways can we actually then garner support and find common themes both to the stuff that South Africa is doing, but also the work that is being done through the G20 that's being led there? Yeah.
Well, I mean, so G20 is an important thing, the fact that South Africa would be chairing it. But does that translate into investment?
Well, in one way it does, because it's really one of the key things about investment is very, very important, is that you've got to sound credible, but you've got to sound like you've got a plan, but also that, the prospects for return and growth are actually more than in one area. So one of the key things here, for example, we know that, you are talking about the energy sector, but are there other areas where when you think about the energy sector growing, that it actually supports growth or is supported through other areas? So, for example, infrastructure investment. So there's energy there, but maybe there's also a big discussion around infrastructure investment in the continent, in the region, and that's one place that, the G20 is supposed to focus on. And if that's an important part about infrastructure in developing markets in our region and elsewhere, that also bodes well for funding energy infrastructure in South Africa. So you can see that there's probably then synergies there.
And I hope your memory is good, but I mean, if you reflect on the past, I mean, is there a particular coming together at, WEF, as they would call it, where South Africa has come back, and the impact of them going to the World Economic Forum has been so spectacular? Is there a year that you can remember in terms of what may have happened?
Well, yeah, some of those days I was not around to say anything. But certainly I know the late Tito Mboweni, the former minister, used to talk about the years at the beginning where they were going there, both when he was, labor minister, then as governor of the Reserve Bank, and then maybe also now back as financial, where Madiba and Leni were still going. And those were the years where South Africa was an exciting place, and there were developments, and South Africa was actually achieving things. And it seems that those years were the golden years where people came in big numbers to listen to any platform where South Africa was presenting or speaking, because we had such a great story to tell. Perhaps those days are coming back.
Oh, goodness, we need to sort that out. Listen, just a quick one, just with a very quick answer. We got like 20 seconds. Donald Trump, in fact, spoke about BRICS nations, suggesting that the BRICS nations may well be facing higher tariffs because if they're part of the BRICS thing. But he included, of course, Spain, by the way, as one of the BRICS nations, and you know that's not true. But what's your thoughts about that and the impact that may have? Very, very quick answer.
The complications, I think the word is about, that's going to present a very complicated picture that's going to need a lot of of thinking from us to make sure we are safe.
Okay, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time, Kanti Pai. I have a sense that Jimmy Moyaha may touch on that on his show from 6 to 7 tonight. So he's saying extra tariffs or higher effective punitive measures regarding those BRICS nations if they're on their own, including, Spain. But there's implications there for South Africa. Goodness, this world is changing overnight, isn't it? And then we have the national pulse. So what's your pulse rate telling you right now?
The Queens of South Africa's beautiful game are taking a break from their pitch duties to dress up and walk on the purple carpet. It's a special evening to celebrate players, coaches, administrators, and officials for their incredible devotion to the game. This is the Hollywoodbet Super League Awards 2024. From grassroots to glory. Witness the Hollywoodbet Super League Awards on Sunday, 26 January at 7:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the toothpaste so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does every electrical company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen and nothing is off the agenda. Join me on The Talking Point every day from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Only on SAFM.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, lots of people want to comment. Let's up the audience engagement, because how do we feel the national pulse? How do I know what your pulse rate tells you? Well, I only know when I talk to you. Let's get Sizwe's thoughts in the Eastern Cape on Kenny Kuneni. Sizwe, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Ashraf. You see, Ashraf, our biggest problem in this country, I think, is the Constitution. I'm not promoting what Kenny Kuneni said because the Constitution is the supreme law. But at the end of the day, he's inviting South Africans to talk, really, because the most progressive constitution is really leaving South Africans to be vulnerable. There are many illegal immigrants who are coming to this country with a negative agenda. You understand? Yes, not everybody who's a foreigner in this country has got that negative agenda, but many of them are like that. There are many of them that are like that. And he's inviting us. There are many South Africans like him that are frustrated in this country because of the so-called most progressive constitution.
But let me ask you this. I mean, I understand the frustration, but can he take the frustration to the level, basically saying they're going to be hanged? Can he get to that level?
No, I don't know. I think he rather took it too far.
But I mean, they haven't even if they're illegal, they haven't murdered anybody. You know what I'm saying? A murderer is a murderer. You get my point. That's the point, isn't it, Sizwe?
Because they're human beings.
Well, Sizwe,
thank you.
Thanks for that. JCK in Musina, go for it.
Ashraf,
yeah.
Compliments of the new season.
You too, much appreciated. I hope you have a fabulous 2025. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And then, Ashraf, I've got two issues quickly with me here. Mm-hmm. Let me start with this one, Yasenzo Meiwa trial.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not happy with the judge, Judge this Rata. Rata seems to be the mouthpiece or spokesperson of the state witness. I wonder if Judge Rata is going to do the same to the witnesses of the defense counsel. Is he going to be their spokesperson? Then if he's going to be their spokesperson, I'll be happy. But if he's going to fail to be the spokesperson of the defense witnesses, I'm going to have a problem. Because, this appeal on this matter of Senzo is loading. I'm not happy with him. Let me go to the second one.
Very
the
quickly,
second
yeah.
one is, is that for that lady, Mengu. That one who's reporting the what you call provincial
Just yeah, okay, from the Eastern Cape, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm not happy with her as well. She's using that bring him down syndrome. I mean, if I send you, you are a lady, I send you those nude pictures, and you respond to me, you are laughing, even yourself, you're sending to me. But today, because you want to taint my name, you said no, it's what abuse. It's not right. That lady, I foresee something. She might be bought or something. Let me rest my case for now.
Okay, and you,
all
right, you're going to rest your case. She may be bought, as you say. Let's get to some of the WhatsApp.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Good afternoon, Mr. Afia. This is Ngaragede here in Limpopo. What Kenneth Nene said, I think that man is smoking something else. Himself, he was once in prison. Why did he go there? He stole from South Africans. Not from illegal immigrants. Illegal migrants have got nothing. Himself, he stole from his own people. He's the one in the typical type of a thief, now pretending to be a good Samaritan. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Okay, and then
Good afternoon, Ashraf. All that now is saying is just nothing. This is true that they are the cause of these illegal miners to stay here fully. They are even mining electrical wires. That's why we are to talk of load shedding day in and day out. So now we must just take Mr. Malema and go to Mozambique, no Zimbabwe, and seek for asylum or ask for any whatever way to stay and stay comfortably there in Zimbabwe or in Mozambique. They must not try to bring criminals here to exercise illegal activities. We are sick and tired. We are starving. Our children are getting unemployed because they are busy talking this nonsense.
Good afternoon, Ashraf and the fellow listeners. I mean, this guy from EFF, Human Rights, he's talking about people who are busy digging holes, who are subjecting small kids to slavery underground. He's speaking from a point of privilege, and I think he's in a popularity contest. What about those communities whose houses are cracking? Those communities who are affected by these illegal miners? What about the infrastructure that is damaged by these people? Now, Lilian Ngoni, even now, has not been rebuilt. That road is still closed. What about the trauma that these people are subjecting people to? So those rights are not valid. This is criminality. Those people should be charged with treason. He must not come and defend nonsense here and people who are committing crime in this country.
Well, I asked you to say, give us a sense of your view so I can measure, your own personal pulse rate. I don't have to add a word to any of the things you've said. I know what you're feeling. The question is how many other people in the country feel the same way. There's further comments. Hi, Ashraf. Granted, Trump signed a slew of executive decisions within minutes of being sworn in as the new president of the USA last night, thereby prompting admiration that he's efficient and make expeditious decisions. The reality is that these decisions were made a long time ago, most likely during his election campaign. Yesterday was not a show of true efficiency on the part of Trump. It was just a charade of Donald Trump being Donald Trump. He was playing to the gallery of his supporters from Philip in Pretoria. Well, Philip, yes and no. I mean, I agree with you. He didn't wake up yesterday morning and say, well, I'm going to make those decisions. No, they had like 2-3 months to sort that out from November. That I agree with you. But it's this, even 2 months. The speed of 2 months is rapid. Now, it's allowed by the fact that they can make executive decisions in a way that South Africans can't. And I'm not saying we must do what they do, wake up in the morning and do that. But I think there's a lot, the way our system works, we have an overextension of checks and balances where things take so long that service delivery slows down to a halt. Let's get the news. It's 5 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
you, Ashraf. In this news update, COSATU to deliberate on latest wage offer and preserving the SADC bloc. Good day to you. Trade Union Federation COSATU is to take government's new wage offer of 5.5% to public sector workers for a decision on whether to accept or reject the offer. The employer met with labour unions at the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council after workers rejected an earlier offer of 5%. The workers' demands have been revised down from an initial 12% to now 6%. COSATU's Simon Tlungwane.
The financial year that we're coming to is 2025-2026 financial year, 5.5%, and then 2026-2027, which is going to be a CPI, and the CPI which is kept at, in case the CPI is below 4%, then it will be deemed to be 4%. As a result, that will be a 4%. We take it that the offer from the employer has a concurrence from Treasury. As a result, it means it is already included in the budget. We're hoping that when the minister then speaks to this issue, it will therefore be included as such. And we also don't hope for the employer, in the name of government, reneging.
The Weather Service has issued a warning of extremely hot weather conditions across the Western Cape. The spokesperson for the City of Cape Town's Disaster Risk Management Centre, Charlotte Powell, says the warning is in place until tomorrow evening.
The public is advised to please heed to the following advice. Drink plenty of water. Seek relief in covered public spaces such as shopping malls and libraries. Limit outdoor activities to earlier or later in the day. Take action at the first sign of heat-related illnesses like muscle cramps, heavy sweating, nausea, vomiting, and dizziness. Seek emergency medical assistance immediately.
The Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions, Rodney de Kock, who's passed away, has been described as a man dedicated to the battle against criminality. He was diagnosed with an aggressive form of brain cancer in December last year. He passed away at the Morningside Mediclinic in Johannesburg yesterday. Hasina Gori reports.
With a career spanning over 3 decades, de Kock was the first black person to be appointed an Attorney General in the country when he joined the prosecuting authority in February 1999. He was appointed Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution in 2020. He also served as Director of Public Prosecutions for the Western Cape from 2003. His memorial and funeral service are expected to be finalized. Hasina Gori, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, Angie Motshekga, says it's very important for the continent to preserve the Southern African Development Community SADC. The regional bloc is responsible for promoting regional integration, economic development, peace and security. She says it should aim for stability in the region, despite challenges.
It's a very important mission for us as a country, as the region, but also as a continent, to keep the SADC, because basically we've been the most stable region in Africa. If you look at what was happening in East Africa, West Africa, we've been the most stable. And therefore it's been very important to make sure that we keep that stability and deal with any threats that might just destabilize the region itself.
The Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, says global uncertainties could slow the pace of rate cuts by major central banks. He was speaking to the SABC at the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland.
The stance that is taken mainly in the United States with respect to tariffs and what it means for the global economy, and that it could actually lead to a decline in in global trade, one, and two, that it could lead to a resurgence of inflation. And with a resurgence of inflation, it would mean that central banks could reduce the pace at which they had been reducing monetary policy restrictiveness. And with that, it's got implications for the currencies of small open economies like that of South Africa.
Top story, COSATU is to take government's new wage offer of 5.5% to public sector workers for a decision on whether to accept or reject the offer. That's SAFM News, I'm Greg Khos.
In sports, Djokovic advances to Australian Open semi-finals and School of Excellence to hold nationwide trials. More details at 5:30.
SAFM.
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 southbound in four ways queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit, the N3 southbound in Edenvale queuing towards Linksfield Road, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gilulis interchange, the N1 northbound in Midrand is slow moving towards Samrand Road, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria queuing towards the R21 highway. In KZN, on the M4 northbound, a crash reported at Sabaya Drive traffic circle. The M7 is queuing at South Coast Road. Umgeni Road westbound slow moving through Springfield Park, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 highway. Bakencroft Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. The R301 northbound in Paarl is slow moving at Boshenmere, and Baden-Powell Drive in Khayelitsha has sand reported on the carriageway at Monwabisi. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. Owning a small or medium-sized business takes courage, skill, and determination. The Clientele Legal Business Plan is there to protect, guide, and assist your business in managing the legal risks. Let us handle your labor matters, employment contracts, CCMA referrals, and so much more. Our team of professional lawyers are standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 42770. That's SAFM to 42770. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The SAFM Playwriting Competition is closing on the 3rd of February 2025. Explore the theatre of the mind and write your 60-minute radio drama play and email it before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of February 2025. Late submissions will not be accepted. For further information about the competition, visit safm.co.za or send an email to drama@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, if you didn't listen to the chat with Kampi Pai earlier on, listen to it. I've got a podcast of it about him setting the scene for Davos. And he made the point about meetings off the formal platforms and then the formal meetings. And I made the point earlier, we had the Ukrainian president talking. Well, guess who's on this platform right now in Davos? South Africa's president, Cyril Ramaphosa. Let's take a listen.
Change has already done and will continue to wreak around the world. In light of this, South Africa has therefore made the strengthening of disaster resilience as another of the priorities of its G20 presidency. The increasing rate of climate-induced natural disasters is affecting countries that can least afford the costs of recovery and rebuilding. And these disasters are also happening in developed economy countries. We've seen how in America the fires are raging, and even in Europe how floods have also caused a lot of devastation. But countries in the global north can recover quickly because of the economic strength that they have. But in order to address the challenges that countries in the global south face, we believe that special financing and insurance mechanisms must be made available to scale up the funding for post-disaster reconstruction. Since the dawn of the industrial age, the benefits to humanity of economic growth have been achieved at the cost of environmental destruction. If we are to survive and to thrive as humanity, we must change this. We must change course. We must pursue development pathways that reconcile growth with urgent climate action. Another of South Africa's priorities for its G20 presidency is to harness critical minerals for inclusive growth and development. We need a G20 framework on green industrialization and investments to ensure progress towards a grand bargain that promotes value addition to critical minerals, particularly close to the source of extraction. We also need the development of low-carbon manufacturing value chains which can support decarbonization and industrial development. There is a need to promote beneficiation and local value addition of resources at source, resulting in an additive rather than an extractive relationship. As minerals extraction accelerates to match the needs of the energy transition, the countries and local communities that are endowed with these rich resources must be the ones that benefit most. At the moment, they don't benefit much because the benefit flows out of their own countries to other locales in the world. We will use this G20 to champion the use of critical minerals through a program of green industrialization and as an engine for growth and development in Africa and the rest of the global south. As this will be the first G20 summit that is held in Africa, it is for us a valuable platform to demonstrate Africa's promise. Many agree that Africa is the next frontier of global growth and productivity. The African continent has an unrivaled natural resource endowment with the youngest population of all continents. Africa continues to be an expanding market for goods and services. The African Continental Free Trade Area has the potential to really change the economic and social fortunes of our continent. We will seek G20 support for the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Adjustment Fund that will enhance inclusive growth, sustainable and regional integration as well. We will look to consolidate various G20 initiatives related to Africa into a flagship agreement for cooperation that is focused on implementation of investments in productive sectors in Africa in areas such as infrastructure. Many of you would know that infrastructure is propelling Africa's growth at the moment. We seek investments in development of skills that will also fuel this infrastructure revolution, particularly for Africa's youth and the economic empowerment of the women of our continent. In the health sector, we would want the G20 to support the production of pharmaceutical products such as therapeutics, as well as vaccines to deal with pandemics. The digitization of the continent, particularly when it comes to artificial intelligence, will enhance trade and development, and they are key enablers that we want to see fully developed. Through its G20 presidency, South Africa is well positioned as a country to advance global cooperation and to build partnerships for growth as well as for development. This is so because South Africa has a rich history of inclusive dialogue and common action. Over the last few years, the South African government has been working very closely with social partners in business in South Africa and with labor and with civil society to address the key national challenges that face our country, as well as to drive inclusive growth. And this cooperation culture and the approach that we have developed over many years has taken us to a higher level. And with the establishment particularly of the Government of National Unity that you referred to, following the elections that were held in May last year, the Government of National Unity, or the GNU as we call it, made up of 10 political parties, a government that we were able to set up in exactly 4 weeks, when many other countries, particularly in the global north, take up to 1 year, and we did it in just 30 days. So this has been vital to stability as well as inclusive governance in our country, and has largely contributed to greater interest amongst investors in South Africa's economic prospects. And I do believe that some of those investors who are having a fresh look at South Africa are also here, and we are going to be interacting with them. The seeds of human progress were sown in Africa. In Africa, the earliest forms of cooperation were forged and developed. As the leaders of the G20 return to Africa, we make a call that we all harness these essential capabilities that will make us take action to build a better and a fairer world. We intend that the G20 in Johannesburg this year should really be a forum where cooperation and collaboration amongst the leading economies of the world will be taken to a higher level. Acting together, we should build an inclusive, just, and equal world in which all may prosper, leaving no one and no country behind. So I look forward, Professor, to welcoming you to the G20 in Johannesburg later this year. And even if you do not participate, any of you do not participate in any of the 130 G20 related meetings, because that's how the G20 works. It builds up to the Leaders Summit, which will be held later in the year, through the various meetings in finance stream and trade stream and many others. I'd like to invite you to come, even if you do not participate in any of these meetings, just to come to South Africa and come and see South Africa for yourself, the most beautiful country in the world. So I invite you to come, and thank you very much.
Well, there you are. See for yourself. Remember, it was an advert that said see for yourself, but then he's saying the most beautiful country in the world. It does make you feel a bit lacquer, doesn't it? Even just for a moment, you just feel nice about it. Never mind, there are many, many problems around us. Anyway, that's the president addressing effectively the business community, the global business community in Davos, right? And there'll be, I'm sure, a reaction on Jimmy's show later on today, and certainly tomorrow morning as well, and many other shows here on SAFM. Right, let's get to another issue that, well, he can now say it, Ramaphosa, that is. Actually, we have no load shedding. 300 days. We'll talk about that after this.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, seriously, we know this. A lot of people said May 30th, 1st of June, you'll see what's going to happen. Load shedding will be back in full swing, as if it never went away. Well, 300 days, there are issues of power failures, there are problems, they still continue, but formal load shedding as we know it, with blocks of times being switched off in rural communities and big cities around the country, has not happened for an incredible 300 days. What do we make of that? Tsepo Khadima is with us, who's an energy analyst. Tsepo, it's a long time since we last chatted, and that tells you why. Good to connect with you on the National Pulse.
Well, Ashraf, great to you as well as to the listeners, and it's good to talk to you in 2025. The last time we spoke was 2024.
Well, there you are, indeed. Right, so first of all, are you surprised at this 300 not out load shedding number?
No, not at all. I mean, for a long time, I asserted that load shedding could be ended within a period of 90 days. I had to repeat that over a number of years.
I remember.
And finally, the penny dropped. And this afternoon, I can tell the listeners and all the people of South Africa that they can look forward to 300 weeks of no load shedding.
I'm trying to compare 300 times 7, so Yeah, 2,100 days, thereabouts, yeah? So you're very clear that, in fact, load shedding is history. That's what you're telling me.
No, load shedding is history. Load shedding was never warranted from day one. We've always had sufficient plant capacity to generate sufficient electricity to supply the needs of the country. However, there were a number of factors that led to the deplorable and financially ruinous and economically catastrophic state of load shedding in the country. But that is history. So, but what has happened in the interim? As much as we can look forward to 300 weeks of no load shedding, we must also bear in mind that there is no guarantee that electricity will be accessible for the majority. So if anything, I can tell you now from what I'm seeing, we are going to see energy poverty increasing. We are going to see the electricity consumption per capita also decreasing from the current 2.7 megawatt hours to maybe a low number of around 2.5 megawatt hours. That now talks directly to the prospect of economic growth, because if you have electricity but it is not competitively priced, as is the case with South Africa, with the relentless tariff increases we have seen over the last decade, it then just means that the economy or Eskom has priced itself out of the competitiveness scales, and therefore this economy cannot attract the energy-intensive user industries, and that itself now takes us to a point whereby we cannot make that giant leap, nor can we even expect the economy to grow by a factor of 5 to 6% as pronounced in the National Development Plan.
Okay, so let's just take a step back and just a quick answer. We don't have much time about that. So, in your opinion, when we had load shedding, why did we have load shedding? And when we've stopped having load shedding, as in now, why did that happen? Just a quick thought on the comparison.
Simple answer: corruption.
That's it. Long pause. Corruption. Okay, let's move forward. I don't have to say much more. Let's move forward now. Do you get a sense that we've got a new leadership of Eskom? We've also got a new Minister of Electricity. We have a new chairman of the Eskom board. Are those decisions, that means the leadership changes, the number one factor that is now seen corruption-free and effective decision-making and effective leadership, and we the beneficiaries of it? Is that how you would conclude on that?
No, the leadership at the board as well as the EXCO level is not effective. They are currently making fundamentally erroneous policy decisions, which are unfortunately going to haunt us as an economy and at the same time drive Eskom to bankruptcy. Remember, the auditors of Eskom have raised a matter of going concern status, which simply means that they cannot vouch that Eskom will still be here in a year or two. And when you look at the decisions that they are currently taking, they are ruinous. The only good thing that has happened is that the politicians have stopped unlawful interference in the due affairs of running Eskom. And as a result, professional managers, particularly the the group executive for generation, Mr. Bheki Numalo, he has done an excellent job because he's an engineer, and the philosophy to engineering is universal standard. And that's all that he had to do. All that they needed to be was to be led to do what they need to do. But at the board level, they have made fundamentally erroneous decisions, such as wanting to add more intermittent energy on the grid. Right now, we are sitting with almost 10 megawatts of so-called renewable energy. But we also have realized, as a country, or Eskom, has had a loss of 11,000 megawatts of electricity demand that ordinarily they would have been the supplier of. It has migrated off-grid, so they now have got excess capacity. So if you look at even their baseload coal-fired power stations, they are currently operating at a level of between 42 and 44%, notwithstanding the availability factor of 62%, which is a big improvement. But by and large, demand continues to be on the decrease, driven by the exodus emanating from the tariff increases, which are just certainly unsustainable.
Okay. So you're saying that gives a distortion. That means the people moving off the grid, as we've discussed before, effectively creates less dependence on Eskom. So that means the capacity for Eskom to deliver to the rest of us is actually easier than they were able to do before.
Oh, yes, indeed. But at the same time, I mean, they needed to... One the other thing that they need to do as Eskom is to actually comply with the prescripts of the Constitution of the Republic. They are currently unlawfully discriminating customers. By that, they are applying a policy from 2006 called the Negotiated Pricing Agreements, which in turn discriminates customers. The so-called energy-intensive users, they are given ridiculous prices whereby you can have a company right now paying 19 cents a kilowatt hour when it takes 54 cents to produce that kilowatt hour of electricity, let alone to then transmit and distribute it. And at the same time, the ordinary user at home is now paying R4.58 thereabout per unit to R4.90 per unit. And after April, they'll be paying well over R5 a unit. I mean, that is certainly unsustainable, but it's going to lead to Eskom's bankruptcy. They need to have a standardized, uniform tariff of R1.22 a kilowatt hour if they are to remain a going concern.
But it's interesting, I mean, on the one hand, you're praising the work of the group executive backing Umano, but on the other hand, you're saying, in fact, their current situation of raising the tariffs will lead to their bankruptcy. So somebody's getting something wrong here then, isn't it? If it's
the CEO is the one who's got it completely wrong, because he's the one who presides over even those so-called negotiated pricing agreements, which are the source of the Eskom's high cost nature and the not earning enough revenue. Hence, they protest and say that they need a cost reflective tariff. When we know that cost is what you determine based on your prudent management approach towards managing any enterprise. And at the same time, the board is failing. The board of Eskom should have been having a proper discussion with government to take the municipalities out from the distribution of electricity, because municipalities are nothing but a middleman who, at the end of the day, has led to the results we all know. Almost 100 billion rand of municipal debt, so-called, is as a result of that middleman. Municipalities should have long been disallowed or taken out through legislation from having to distribute electricity. There's no reason on why any user in this country should not get electricity directly from
directly. Okay,
and affordable.
But I mean, here's the thought. You mentioned the group the group CEO, that's Dan Morokane, but also now the chairperson of the board is Mteto Niati, who, just by the way, not only is he the chairperson and according to, for all intents and purposes, a very effective leader in many businesses, but he effectively comes from a tech background, and I think that's significant in terms of your first point about dealing with Eskom directly. Surely he would know more than anybody else about being wonderfully innovative about the way Eskom can actually deliver electricity to the people.
It is not apparent that he understands the laws of physics, because if he did, there is no way he would have advocated for adding more intermittent power onto Eskom's high voltage grid, because anybody who purports to successfully transmit intermittent power from either solar or wind sources, that person makes a bold claim of having rewritten the laws of physics. That's what they are doing.
Just the last thing. I mean, and again, I'm quoting the CEO. Dan Morokane, saying public sentiment is shifting. Business leaders who once had to invest precious capex in self-generation, and that's the key word, self-generation, have now inquired whether they should revert to investing in Eskom for their power needs. Do you think that's going to happen?
It will remain but just an inquiry as long as the tariffs remain high. So what they will probably do is to incentivize those energy-intensive users through the negotiated pricing agreements further, meaning that you and I, the normal user at home, will pay well over 600 a kilowatt hour in order to subsidize the big business.
Okay, Tsepo Khadima, I'll tell you what, before we stop, you always have these prophecies for the future in terms of power. Give me one more in 10 seconds.
Well, in the next year, 2025, another 2,000 or so megawatts of electricity demand is going to go off grid. So the exodus will unfortunately going to continue unabated.
Okay, and we got it on the record. Thanks for your time. Much appreciate you giving your thoughts here. And this entire interview will be up as a podcast ASAP. Let's get the news headlines. It's 5:30. Here's Greg House.
A quick look at the headlines. President Ramaphosa says cooperation remains crucial for global progress. COSATU is to take government's new wage offer of 5.5% to public sector workers for a decision on whether to accept or reject the offer. And the Weather Service has issued a warning of extremely hot weather conditions across the Western Cape. There's a full update at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound in central Johannesburg has a crash reported at Crown Interchange. The N1 southbound in Four Ways is queuing towards Winnie Mandela Drive exit. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gillilees Interchange. The N1 northbound in Midrand slow moving towards Samrand Road. Weirder Road westbound in Centurion has a crash at the N14 highway, and the N1 northbound in Pretoria is slow moving towards the Garsfontein Road exit. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a crash before the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. The M7 is queuing at South Coast Road. The M7 eastbound in Pinetown has a crash reported at North Dean exit. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and the R56 in Richmond has a truck fire incident reported at Unkomas Valley. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound slow moving towards the R300 highway. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Kronbom Road exit. The M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. The N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound is slow moving towards Voortrekker Road, and the N1 outbound slow moving towards Okavango Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tumi, so tennis is over. Djokovic, well, he's not over. He's storming on. Let's talk rugby.
Well, the Stormers are reportedly set to lose Ben Loader to English Premiership side Gloucester. Loader has reportedly signed a 3-year deal from next season, having spent the past 2 years in Cape Town. Meanwhile, the Stormers are fighting to keep centre Wandisile Simelane, who has attracted interest from 3 different international sides. In football, after successfully staging their first trials in 2025 for players born in 2011 and 2012 this past weekend, the SAFA Transnet School of Excellence is preparing to search nationwide for the first time in 6 years. Financial difficulties in the last few years have prevented the School of Excellence from conducting the traditional nationwide talent search. However, the school's head of technical, Mojalefa Matebula, says that Transnet has come on board to assist with the much needed funding this year.
We were also fortunate because we were given funding to do trials by Transnet. So from the 15th, we're going to do coastal provinces, so Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Free State, and Northwest. And then the following week, we are doing coastal, which is Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and then KZN. And then from there, those who are shortlisted from there, they'll also be combined with this current group, and then from there we'll be able to take out the final list.
Elsewhere, Manchester City have announced the signing of teenage defender Vitor Reis from Brazilian club Palmeiras for a reported fee of $36.2 million. The 19-year-old youth international has signed a 4.5-year deal with the Premier League champions. In the meantime, Liverpool will be looking to book their place in the Champions League round of 16 when they host French side Lille in Anfield tonight. The Merseysiders are first in the league phase with a perfect record of 6 victories from 6, while Lille are 8 with 13 points and currently occupy the final automatic qualification spot for the round of 16. Arne Slot's team are already guaranteed a round of 16 playoff spot, but they just need 1 point more to secure one of the 8 automatic qualification spots, though they could lose their 2 remaining games and still advance. Meanwhile, in motorsport, Haas has restructured their race operations team with a series of changes that include appointing Laura Mueller as the first female race engineer engineer in Formula One. Mueller will work with new signing Esteban Ocon as one of the 2 new race engineers at the US-based team. Now, Haas's new head of strategy will also be a woman, Karin Kredelich, and she's been recruited from Red Bull's racing Bulls team and will start working from the 1st of March. In tennis, Novak Djokovic through to the semi-finals after beating Carlos Alcaraz to stay on track for an 11th Australian Open title. He next up takes on Alexander Zverev, and he claimed a 4-6, 6-4, 6-3 and 6-4 win despite having his left thigh heavily strapped. And also on the women's side, Arina Sabalenka kept a historic Olympic Australian Open hat-trick hopes high by beating 27th seed Anastasia Peluchenkova 6-2, 2-6 and 6-3 in the quarterfinals, and the world number 1 will face Spain's Paula Badosa for a place in the Melbourne final after the Spanish 11th seed stunned Coco Gauff in straight sets. With that said, it is a wrap from my side. I'll have more on other sports tomorrow.
Yeah, lots to consider. And maybe we'll talk about where the Garnacho really goes, by the way. Lots of people are interested in that. He could well be going and Rashford could be staying. It's crazy. But we'll talk about other transfer news, even in South Africa soon.
Alrighty.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.5 FM in Tabazimbi.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, so let's get to those facts and figures. Jimmy Moya hosts the SAFM Market Update. Jimmy, let's talk about what's moving markets.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. We've got some interesting market movements following the Trump inauguration yesterday. We know that after Trump was inaugurated, almost immediately he began signing off executive orders, the first of which I believe was to rescind 78 of former President Joe Biden's executive orders. So that was the first executive order that was signed, and then there was a list of other ones, including ones to do with BRICS and BRICS countries abandoning the US dollar, as well as things around the United States leaving the Paris Climate Agreement and leaving the World Health Organization. So we're going to unpack that. We're going to look at what Trump means for the world now that we know that he is officially the POTUS in the United States at the moment and will be there for the next couple of years. So that's going to be something to reflect on. We're also going to take a look at what's happening in the SOE space. There was a conversation that happened, it's been happening for a while though, around the potential for listing SOEs on the JSE. We're going to take a look at that and see if there's merit behind that and what that could potentially mean for having SOEs listed on a public exchange. Then we're going to take a look at an interesting development around data security. There is conversations or there's information out there that suggests that the National Credit Act could potentially be compromising your data in terms of data security. We're going to look at that, and I'm going to look at how that conflicts with the Protection of Public Information Act, so the POPI Act, and we'll see if we can make heads or tails of that conversation. And then we're going to wrap things up on a Tuesday, as we always do, with or not always, but every other Tuesday, with a property feature. We're taking a look at home loan and property trends for 2025. But before we get to that, the markets have had a better day today. Optimism from yesterday's inauguration and some of the executive orders that were signed there. I think the market sentiment in general just kind of improved. The price of equity markets just moved up across all equity markets. The price of gold moved up as well. Other commodities also had a slightly better day. Some currencies not doing so well. But on the equity side, let's look at some Asian movements. The Shanghai index, the only index in the red, but marginally so, about 6 basis points. Hong Kong was up almost a full percent. The Nikkei in Tokyo up 1/3%, and the ASX in Sydney up 2/3%. European markets also in the green. The DAX marginally in the green, though 4 basis points higher there, but everything else In the case of the FTSE, about 1/5%, and the CAC 40 around 1/3% in the green. US markets currently in the green. Nasdaq slightly down, about 0.14% in the red, but the S&P about 1/5% in the green. South African markets had a better day as well. Resources 0.78% in the green. Industrials about 1/5% in the red, but financials up about 1/3%. As a result, the all share up about 13 basis points, 0.13%. The top 40 almost 0.2% in the green there. And if we look at the currency movements, the rand gaining a lot of ground against the US dollar, 18 rand 52 cents at the moment. 1 British pound will cost you 22 rand 78. 1 euro still above 19 rand and 26 cents, a little stronger there though. And 1 Australian dollar, 11 rand and 59. Those looking at Bitcoin back at $103 a coin, and a roughly 1.91 million rand in terms of that price there. A quick look at commodities before we go. Platinum, palladium kind of holding steady, both around the $960 range. Brent crude still below $80 a barrel, $79.19. And the price of gold, $2,735 a fine ounce, about 0.75% stronger at the moment. We're going to look into some of these movements. We're going to look into some of the big gainers. MTN doing about 5% in gains today, so we're going to look at what's been driving some of these movements as well when we come back a little later on. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you. We'll certainly connect tomorrow then, with lots of other things that are happening in the world as we talk. Thanks for that to Jimmy Muyaha. And catch the SAFM market update 6 to 7. So it happens imminently. Right, it's time for us to engage with you. Let's do that next.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Ashraf Garba, it's Mtintebe. You know, Ashraf Garba, you cannot compare the president of South Africa with the president of the United States of America, because the president of USA has what I call the global power. Those people, they control almost majority of the institution, not all of them, but majority of the institution that we use, that is the pillar for majority of the countries. So while our president, like South Africa, doesn't control, by the way, it's relying on those institutions so that it can be able to survive. So we cannot sleep and then wake up the next day and then change things, because of the global community. It itself will condemn us and will never survive on that, to be honest with you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Agmatovola. Ashraf, there is no way that we can never, a lot of people will never like Trump. People like Trump because whatever he was talking about, that he will take it out if he became the president of USA. He's doing that, more especially when it comes to the side of humanity, that there's men and women. That's what a lot of people need. It's just they are scared to say it. But that is it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. Mr. Kada, you know that gentleman who said, like, in 1923, the leaders wanted South Africa, like they wanted Zimbabwe to be part of South Africa. I think those leaders were right. So why don't you make Zimbabwe province number 10? Because it's the same as half of the population of Zimbabwe. They are living here in South Africa. About 6 million of them are here in South Africa. So just incorporate it, and then it becomes a part of like South Africa. Please, man, Africa unite.
No, but you can't just incorporate. I mean, that's like taking over another whole country just because we feel like it. No, that would be annexing, and that's not good. Not in a democratic world. But I understand collaboration occurs between the neighbors. I mean, the part about Trump and you can't compare. Look, I mean, that's exactly the point. The USA does have the power. Do I like it? Maybe not. But do they have the power? Yes, they do have the power. And that's for the USA, and its president can pronounce confidently, like in one fell swoop, that, you know, the Panama Canal that we built for you and he gave you as a gift stupidly, well, we're going to take it back. And you know the Gulf of Mexico? Well, as of now, it's the Gulf of America. You know, that sort of thing. He has that power to assert himself, backed up by a whole lot of different things that I think has been well documented. But I tell you what, there's more thoughts. So you may want to call in 086 000 2032. It's always ask you the question, what is it that moves the national pulse? Do you have any thoughts on that Eskom story? Not just the fact that it's 300 days, but as per my conversation with the guest we had, Tsepo Khadima, that in fact we must factor in the fact that companies and people are increasingly off the grid, which creates one, corruption, no corruption. Then people are off the grid, so less dependence on Eskom, then increased efficiency, which he'll concede. But then, although they're inquiring about getting back on the grid, he suggests that don't expect too much around that one, and he's worried about the increased prices. What do you make of all of that regarding Eskom that's come through? Then if you heard some of the president's address, Ramaphosa, when he spoke to the global business community at Davos, any thoughts you want to pick up on that? That issue about the EFF responding to Kenny Kunene's responses regarding the miners, who effectively suggesting they should be hanged. Any thoughts on that one there? And many of the other issues that we've been talking about. There's been so much, including, I mean, if you want to just go into detail about Donald Trump's, some of the sweeping executive statements of powers that he's put into place, thoughts about that, and then basically his overall conversation that he had yesterday in terms of his speech. And I have said this before, I did think that I thought that, and really this is not suggesting I like him, I'm talking about the actual speech, the words, that his tone was very, very conversational, which actually works a lot better than sometimes the president speaking over your head. You just notice how he spoke, and I just wonder whether we should just take some advice on that. He doesn't always do that. He does not always do that. In fact, sometimes he looks rather silly, especially when it comes to, I think, the campaigns, right? But okay, here's more thoughts from you.
Hi, Ashraf. Good afternoon. I would like to concur with the previous speaker there on WhatsApp from US that we have decided to fall into the pot of poverty as long as we still continue voting for ANC until we change our vote for a new party, not for this one from ANC. ANC what? Copy. No. The new political party that will come with new mandate, new vision. I think it will assist us. Thank you.
Hi, Ashraf. It's simple democracy. Donald Trump promised the American people that he's going to deliver on certain things, and the American people overwhelmingly voted for him, so now he must deliver. It's democracy. That's what the American people want, and that's what Donald Trump is going to deliver. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. This thing of 300 days of no load shedding is just a joke, because here in Tzaneen and Ndabulobelu, most of the community we face load shedding every day, 5 p.m., 5 a.m. every day at Khamoloko.
Well, I mean, on that point, so load shedding every day. I mean, I understand it's not load shedding. Maybe but it's certainly a power failure, and that is a problem. I think the load shedding is a different phrase, as we know. It doesn't mean power issues have been sorted out in the whole country, not at all. I think on the issue of Trump, it's an important one that was made. That he put forward a policy. He asked people to vote for him. People voted for him, and now he's executing on that. And that's true, isn't it? Even if you and I may not like some parts of it. And I think that's where there's a difference between what's happened there and in South Africa. And I personally spoke about it a few times to say, if I vote for a political party and they come into power, then I expect them to execute on that policy. And if I vote for that party and they don't get a majority, and no parties get a majority, I haven't given that party that I voted for the mandate to negotiate with other parties on my behalf. So I felt at that stage there needed to be like an election rerun if nobody gets 50%, or the parties need to come back and say, give us a mandate to speak to these parties so that we can talk to them, we can form a coalition with them, we can form the government of national unity with them. And I'm talking about all the parties, because I do find it's if you listen to many of the politicians in our election and the things they said and the things they promised to not speak to party ABC ever, well, they're all talking to each other, and they're not just talking, they are in partnership with them. There's something wrong about that, isn't it? Let's hear more thoughts from you.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. It's good to hear from Minister NJ Mutsecha after a long time. Where is the General Bantu Olomisa? What is he going to say to the electorate in the next elections? Just asking. Bafana Kumalo in Membel.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. These people who are saying they don't want to vote ANC, can they tell me which party do they want to vote? Or which part do they want it to rule? Because when I look, I can't see a party which is a little bit better than ANC.
Hi, Ashraf. Hope you're well. Listening to that interview you had with that gentleman regarding Eskom and electricity, that's sobering. So, South Africa have got people who are intelligent. Listening to him, he speaks a lot of sense. And it's said that people like those who are not used to advise where it's needed. He should be advising Eskom or sitting in the board of Eskom, did that gentleman, because he knows his story, Goodness me. Sure, I would like to know what type of business does he run, if he's got businesses, or he's very, very good and he speaks facts, and those facts are on his fingertips. It's Lucky from Paarl in the Western Cape. I will definitely listen to the podcast again of that interview.
Yeah, great. You should listen to the podcast. Tsepo Kadima is who we referring to. Maybe Google him, you'll get more information about him. But thanks for that. And yes, podcasts of all the things we've done on the show, as we do every single day, is available. Go to the website, safm.co.za, and then check it out under the National Pulse. And do share that. Share it with your friends. It's the basis of a really good argument, I would think, okay? Now, whether you're a regular listener or a first-time listener, you can be a first-time caller as well. Love it when you engage as part of this audience engagement, because it gives me a good sense of what exactly your pulses are telling you about what you feel about the country.
The only thing positive the EFF has got for our country was going to be the abolishment of the tenders. That's the only thing good for South Africans. The rest, it's just nonsense. And this thing of protecting foreigners. Thank you, Anonymous from Soweto.
SFM, I just want to find out and get more information about the Transnet soccer scouting that they are going to do all over the country. Can you give us more information in connection with that? Because where in the Northern Cape will they start to scout? Because in Kakamas area, in the Uppington area, there's a lot of youngsters that are playing soccer for different clubs. If you can you give us more information about that, please? Let's come from Terence.
Afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. This is Magdalene from Bloom. Ashraf, I think our votes became our voices. We made it clear as South Africans that we are tired of one political party making as it wishes in South Africa. So we South Africans, we definitely want to see South Africa being cleaned up out of illegal foreign nationals. EFF is out of order. Kenny Kunene is on point. I think Trump loves America than anything else, and he wants to preserve his country and his people. That's what we need in South Africa. Magdalene from Bloom, thank you.
Thanks for that, Magdalene. I tell you what, regarding the foreign nationals, I don't know about people have spoken. I mean, I think if you look at, you have a view, and certainly Kenny Kunene's party has a view, but the majority, do they have the view that foreign nationals must be out. I think there's a difference between that and undocumented foreign nationals in terms of our borders being porous and we've allowed people to come in versus no, we don't want any foreigners. There's a big difference. I'm just putting that out there. Right, let's see if, in fact, I'm going to check if, so there's two things. One is Donald Trump, clever guy. So he spoke about the BRICS nations and what may happen to them in terms of their dealings with the USA. Listen to what he said.
Thank you, sir.
What can we expect of the countries in NATO that spend the least amount of money, like Spain, France, below the 5%?
Spain is very low. And yet, are they a BRICS nation?
What?
They're a BRICS nation, Spain. You know what a BRICS nation is? You'll figure it out. But, and if the BRICS nations want to do that, that's okay, but we're going to put at least a 100% tariff on the business they do with the United States. You know what the BRICS is, right? You guys know. You know what I'm saying, right?
Thank you, sir.
Well, there's two parts of it. The fun part is he got it wrong about Spain, because Spain is not a BRICS nation. The other part is suggesting if the BRICS nations collaborate on certain issues about the economy, then they do business with the USA, not being very specific, but 100% tariffs. That could be a big, big issue. I promise you, that is a big issue, right? Okay, then we've had, we had a listener tweeting, in fact, that's Klahlanati Chachayi, saying, let me read it, in fact, because we're doing it just for you, okay, saying, if we could end your show by listening to that last part of the president's address, the most beautiful country in the world, maybe we would feel good, even if just for a bit. Now, it's not quite the end of the show, but we thought we'll play it because you asked.
I'd like to invite you to come, even if you do not participate in any of these meetings, just to come to South Africa and come and see South Africa for yourself, the most beautiful country in the world. So I invite you to come, and thank you very much.
It does feel lekker, isn't it? The most beautiful country in the world. I'd love others to say the same thing. People have said so. What about more people saying, like, the champion nation, the country that we all want to be a part of? I mean, that would be fantastic. Right, let's play some more of the voice notes.
Afternoon, Ashraf and the listeners. This is Magdalene from Bloom. Ashraf, I think our votes became our voices.
Afternoon, Ashraf, Moses in Durban. Ashraf, about this mining, our beloved government, not only government, our beloved politicians, police, army, these big officials, big guns, are the ones who are benefiting more than the Zamazamas themselves. You see, there is no political will to end this because these gurus are benefiting much from this Zamazama. So they can't, this thing cannot come to an end. Ken Kuneni knows this better. But because he's getting something, that's why he's just blaming the Zamazamas. Yet the big guns, he knows the big guns who are profiting from these Zamazamas. Moses Tebe.
Hi Ashraf, good show. It's Daniel. Every country, and now let's focus on our country, South Africa. For 30 years, we are a democratic country. Let's take stock what we did, what is happening, and what we're going to do. America has the new president. I think he's good. What he's doing for his country, he cares for his people, and I think we should respect that. Can we stay without them, or they can stay without us? The issue is, let us focus on our country. Let's get our country right. Government officials, be committed, be servants to the community and to the people that voted them into power. Power is not in people. Power should be in homes, in quality jobs, good hospitals, good clinics, primary healthcare, good transportation, and serving the needs of the poor. Thank you.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, you're right about all of that in terms of whether what we should be doing. I mean, it just gets me thinking, yes, it would be an interesting exercise. I mean, it has been done. It's like, okay, 30 years, what have we got right as a country? List like 20 things, and I'm really saying 20 things we got right, then what are the 20 things we've got wrong? And I tell you what, and sometimes it's easier to understand it when you reflect on, when you use a sporting example. So if you think of South Africa as a country playing in the World League of Nations, then in the 30-year period, where have we been on the log in all that period? And I'm suggesting that there's a period that we were never top of the log, but there was a period that we were really aiming high, and countries loved us, so we were like probably 6th or 7th or 10th on the log out of a 100-team league. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay, and then we dropped off, and we dropped off, and we dropped off. Now I think we're a mid-table country. So 100 teams playing in this league, and 100 teams playing in this league, we're sitting around, probably 50, 60, which is no good. And if we get any worse, we then move into the relegation zone in the lower region. If we get any better, we start pushing up into the top 15, 20, which is where we need to be. I did say 6, I think that's exaggerating. No, we're probably top 20 at some stage, okay? And that's where we need to be. If we do that, it also means that the citizens of our country are getting exactly what they want. To borrow a well-known ANC phrase, a better life for all. Now, that's something to consider. Never mind which party is saying so as we end the show here. It is the National Pulse. Maybe tomorrow the pulse rate will be just smooth because everything is just working beautifully. Think about that. Thanks for the show. We'll do it again tomorrow, the National Pulse. Right now, let's get the news. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Enjoy the rest of your evening. In this news update, Ramaphosa hails global cooperation in